Hey everyone, I'm Mono Scaling. I'm here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now get comfortable and relax. Story 1. My name is Ben Walker. I was recording a folklore podcast in Sam Houston Forest, Texas. I didn't realize I'd become the next legend. I should start at the beginning, before everything went wrong. Before I understood what that phrase actually meant. Day 1. Thursday. The RV rental place in Houston smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. The guy behind the counter, Jerry, according to his name tag, barely looked up from his phone as he slid the keys across to me. "Taking it up to Sam Houston?" he asked. "Yeah, Big Thicket RV Park, doing some research for my podcast." He paused then. Actually looked at me. "What kind of research?" "Local legends, folklore, that kind of thing." I was used to this reaction. People either got really interested or really dismissive. Jerry was neither. He just nodded slowly and went back to his phone. "Just remember to lock it up at night," he said. The drive north was uneventful. 2 hours of pine trees and gas stations. I'd been producing Forgotten Tales for 3 years. Small audience, decent Patreon support, enough to make it worth doing. This trip was supposed to be a 2-week deep dive into East Texas folklore. Sam Houston National Forest had everything. Native American history, settler stories, bootlegger legends from Prohibition, and more recent stuff that didn't make it into tourist brochures. The RV park was exactly what I expected. Gravel lots, concrete pads, a small office with an open sign that looked permanently weathered. About a dozen other RVs were scattered around, mostly retirees, I guessed. A couple of families, one beat-up Winnebago that looked like it hadn't moved in years. I checked in with the manager, a woman named Doris who wore a University of Texas visor and kept adjusting it while she talked. "You're in spot 17, she said, highlighting it on a photocopied map. "Hookups are all working. Wi-Fi password is on the sheet. How long you staying?" 2 weeks, maybe less. "What brings you out here?" I gave her my standard explanation. She nodded along, not particularly interested until I mentioned I was looking for local stories. "You should talk to Marcus," she said. "He's in spot 9, been coming here for years, knows all kinds of stuff about the forest." "That'd be great, thanks." "Just so you know," she added as I was leaving, "we lock the main gate at 11. If you're coming back late, use the code, it's on your sheet." Spot 17 backed up against the tree line. I could see the forest through the rear window once I'd parked and leveled the RV. Endless pines, dense undergrowth, the kind of woods that looked the same in every direction. The evening was already settling in, that golden hour before twilight. I spent the first hour getting organized, testing my recording equipment, making sure everything was working properly. My podcast setup was simple: a Zoom H6 recorder, 2 Shure SM58 microphones, a laptop for editing. I'd learned early on that expensive gear didn't make better stories. What mattered was getting people comfortable enough to talk. I was organizing my notes when someone knocked on the door. He was maybe 70, deeply tanned, wearing cargo shorts and a fishing vest despite the heat. "You Ben? Doris said you wanted to talk to me. I'm Marcus." "Yeah, come in. Want some coffee?" He declined and sat down at the small dinette table while I got my recorder set up. Marcus had the easy manner of someone who'd told stories before. He started with the standard stuff: legends about the Caddo tribes, stories about Sam Houston himself supposedly hiding out in these woods, a few tales about moonshiners who'd killed federal agents back in the 20s. "But that's not what you're really after," he said after about 20 minutes. "You want the weird stuff." "The weird stuff is usually the most interesting," I said. He leaned back. "You ever hear about The Listener?" I hadn't. I told him to go on. "It's an old story. Probably not even from Texas originally, but locals around here have been telling it for as long as I've been coming, which is about 30 years now. Story goes that there's something in these woods that feeds on stories. Not like a normal creature, more like an idea that got hungry. The listener, they call it, because that's what it does, it listens. Listens to what? stories about itself. Every time someone tells the tale, it gets stronger, more real. The old-timers say if you tell the story all the way through, speak it out loud in these woods, the listener hears you, and then you become part of the story. What does that mean? Marcus shrugged. Nobody knows. People who tell it don't usually come back to explain, or if they do come back, they don't remember it right. Details get fuzzy. That's the thing about the listener. It doesn't kill you or make you disappear. It just makes you part of the story. And once you're part of it, you can't help but pass it on. I was making notes. This was good material. Has anyone you know experienced this? I met a guy 5 years back. He was staying here in the park doing hiking or bird watching or something. He heard the story from someone in town and thought it was interesting enough to record. Set up his camera out in the woods, did a whole video about it, posted it online. And? He came back different. Hard to explain. He looked the same, sounded the same, but something was off. He kept talking about the story, kept wanting to tell it to people. He'd corner folks at the shower house, the office, anywhere. Eventually, Doris had to ask him to leave. Last I heard, he was still out there somewhere, still telling the story. Do you remember his name? Marcus thought for a moment. David something. David Reeves, maybe? I don't really remember. That's the other thing people say about the listener. It makes you forget the people who came before, like they fade out of memory. We talked for another hour. He gave me a few other leads. A woman in the nearby town of Cold Spring who collected local stories. A ranger station that supposedly had some old files about unusual incidents in the forest. When he left, he paused at the door. Just be careful what you record out there, he said. Some stories don't want to stay recorded. I thanked him and closed the door. It was fully dark now. Through the window, I could see other RVs lit up from inside, could hear the distant sound of a TV, someone laughing, normal camping sounds. I spent the rest of the evening transcribing the interview and making plans for the next few days. I wanted to talk to that woman in Cold Spring, maybe get some historical context from the ranger station. The listener story was exactly the kind of thing my audience loved. Creepy, locally specific, with just enough ambiguity to be unsettling. Before bed, I did what I always did. Recorded a voice note on my phone summarizing the day. It was a habit from my journalism days, a way to capture thoughts and observations while they were fresh. I'd listen back to them when I was editing, use them to remember details. Day 1 went well, I said into my phone. Got a great interview with Marcus. The listener story is perfect, creepy without being cliché, local history, that recursive element of stories feeding on themselves. Tomorrow I'll head into town, see what else I can dig up. So far, though, this is promising. I locked the RV doors, checked the windows, and went to bed. The forest outside was completely silent. No insects, no birds, no wind. I remember thinking it was odd, but I was tired, and I fell asleep quickly. Day 2. Friday. I woke up at 7, made coffee, and checked my recordings from the night before to make sure everything had transferred properly. That's when I noticed the first strange thing. The voice note I'd recorded before bed was longer than I remembered. According to the file timestamp, it was almost 10 minutes long, but I'd only talked for maybe 2 minutes. I played it back. My voice, clear as anything. Day 1 went well. Got a great interview with Marcus. Then it continued. My voice, my cadence, my speech patterns. The interesting thing is that Marcus looked nervous when he told me about David Reeves. His hands were shaking. He kept glancing at the windows. I don't think he wanted to tell me the story at all. I think he felt compelled to. Like he had to. That's the thing about the listener. Once you know about it, you have to pass it on. You can't help yourself. I hadn't said any of that. I was certain. The recording went on, my voice describing details I didn't remember noticing, observations I didn't recall making. It ended with, I think I should go into the woods tomorrow, not to the ranger station, deeper. The story wants to be told there. The story wants to be complete. I sat there staring at my phone for a long time. Technical glitch, obviously. Maybe I'd been talking in my sleep, some kind of parasomnia thing. I'd been stressed lately, working too hard. That had to be it. I deleted the file and made breakfast. The drive to Cold Spring took 30 minutes. The town was small. One main street. A few churches, a diner, a grocery store. I found the local library, a brick building that looked like it had been there since the 50s. The woman Marcus had mentioned, Carol Simmons, was expecting me. Doris had apparently called ahead. Carol was probably in her late 60s with reading glasses on a chain and careful handwriting in the notebook she kept. She'd been collecting local stories for 40 years, she told me. Showed me file boxes full of handwritten accounts, old photographs, newspaper clippings. "The Listener," she said when I brought it up. "Yes, I've heard about that. It's not in any of my official collections, though." "Why not?" "Because I can never remember the details right. Every time someone tells me about it, I think I have it clear in my mind, but when I sit down to write it out, it comes out different. The core is the same, something in the woods that feeds on stories about itself. But the specifics change. Names, dates, locations. It's like trying to hold water in your hands." She showed me 3 different versions she'd written over the years. She was right. They were similar but contradictory. In one version, the listener was described as a presence. In another, it was a voice. In the third, it was nothing at all. Just the idea that made people act strangely. "Have you met anyone who claimed to have experienced it?" I asked. She thought for a moment. "There was a man a few years ago. He came into the library asking about it, said he'd heard about it somewhere and wanted to know more. I told him what I knew, which wasn't much. He left, seemed normal enough. But then I saw him around town a few times after that and he'd changed. Not physically, but he kept bringing up the story in conversations, even when it wasn't relevant. He'd corner people at the grocery store and start telling them about the listener. It got to where people started avoiding him. What happened to him? I don't know. He left town eventually. Or I think he did. To be honest, I can't quite remember his face anymore. I recorded our conversation, took photos of her written accounts, and left the library around noon. Something about the whole thing was starting to bother me, but I couldn't pin down exactly what. It was too perfect, maybe. Too on theme for a podcast about folklore becoming real. I stopped at the diner for lunch. The waitress was friendly, the food was decent. I asked her if she'd ever heard of the listener. She hadn't. Neither had the 2 other people I asked. An older man at the counter, a woman who came in to pick up a to-go order. Nobody knew anything about it. On the drive back to the RV park, I tried to think through what I had. A story that changed depending on who told it. People who claimed to have encountered it but whose details were vague or contradictory. Someone, maybe multiple someones, who'd become obsessed with telling the story after hearing it. It was good material. Ambiguous enough to be genuinely creepy. I could build a whole episode around the question of whether the story was creating the phenomenon or reporting on something real. When I got back to the RV park, I spent the rest of the afternoon editing the interview with Marcus. His voice came through clear, his story compelling. I was about halfway through when I noticed something odd in the audio. There was a sound underneath his voice, faint but definitely there, like breathing, or maybe like wind through leaves. But we'd been inside the RV. There shouldn't have been any ambient noise like that. I isolated the sound, boosted it. It was rhythmic, slow, in and out, in and out. Almost like someone knocked on the door. I jumped, pulled off my headphones. It was already dark outside. I'd lost track of time. It was Marcus again. "Hey, sorry to bother you. Just wanted to check if everything worked okay with the recording." "Yeah, it's great. I was just going through it now." He hesitated. "Can I ask you something? Did you feel anything weird last night, after I left?" "Weird how?" "I don't know. I had trouble sleeping. Kept thinking about the story. Kept feeling like I needed to go out into the woods and finish telling it, like there were parts I'd left out." "Were there?" "I don't think so, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Finally got up around 3 and sat outside for a while, just listening to the forest. Did you hear anything? Not exactly. More like, have you ever been somewhere really quiet, and you start hearing sounds that aren't really there? Your brain fills in the silence. It was like that, except the sounds felt directed at me. Does that make sense? Not really. He laughed, but it sounded forced. Yeah, I know. I'm probably just getting old. Anyway, I wanted to make sure you got what you needed and to say again, be careful with that story. I've been thinking all day that I shouldn't have told you about it. But I couldn't help myself. I felt like I had to. After he left, I stood at the door for a while, looking out at the dark park. Most of the other RVs had their lights on. I could see people moving around inside, living their normal lives. Everything looked completely ordinary. I went back to editing, but I kept thinking about what Marcus had said. That feeling of compulsion, of needing to tell the story even though he didn't want to. Around 10, I took a break and went for a walk. The RV park had a small loop road, maybe a quarter-mile around. Security lights were spaced at intervals, creating pools of yellow light in the darkness. The gate was closed and locked for the night. I was almost back to my sight when I saw someone standing at the edge of the woods. It was a man, I thought. Hard to tell in the bad light. He was just standing there, perfectly still, facing the trees. I couldn't see his face. You okay? I called out. He didn't move, didn't respond. I walked closer, ready to offer help if he needed it. That's when I saw he was talking. Moving his lips, whispering something I couldn't hear. His eyes were open but unfocused. Hey, I said, louder now. Are you all right? He turned to look at me. His expression was completely blank. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile, more like he'd just remembered he was supposed to, and walked away toward one of the RVs. I watched him go inside, saw the light flick on. Through the window, I could see him sitting down at a table, still talking to himself. I went back to my RV and locked the door. That night, I had vivid dreams. I was in the forest, following a trail that seemed familiar, but wasn't. Someone was ahead of me, just out of sight. I kept trying to catch up, but they stayed the same distance ahead. I could hear them talking, telling a story. My story. The one I was living right now. Every detail, every moment, exactly as it was happening. When I woke up, my phone was recording. The voice memo app was open, the timer showing it had been recording for hours. I stopped it, played it back, my voice talking in my sleep. And then I saw him at the edge of the woods. He was telling the story. He had to tell it. That's what the listener wants. It wants the story to spread. It wants more people to know. Because every time someone hears it, it gets stronger. Every time someone tells it, they become part of it. And once you're part of it, you can never stop telling it. You'll tell it to everyone you meet. You'll whisper it in your sleep. You'll think about it constantly. The story will be all you have left. I deleted the file immediately, but I could still hear the words in my head. Day 3. Saturday. I didn't trust myself to sleep anymore, so I stayed up, made coffee around 6, watched the sunrise through the rear window. The forest looked innocent in the morning light, just trees and undergrowth, nothing sinister. I needed to get out of my own head. I decided to visit the ranger station Marcus had mentioned. It was about 10 miles away, deeper into the national forest. Maybe looking at old records, dealing with bureaucracy and paperwork, would help ground me in reality. The ranger station was a modest building, more like an office than anything else. The ranger on duty, a woman named Jennifer who looked to be in her early 30s, was helpful but puzzled by my request. We don't really keep records of folklore, she said. Just incident reports, trail maintenance logs, that kind of thing. What about unusual incidents, missing persons, strange behavior, anything like that? She thought about it. We get missing persons cases maybe once or twice a year. Usually it's someone who wandered off trail and got lost. We find them within a day or two. As for strange behavior, she pulled up something on her computer. We've had a few calls over the years about people acting oddly in the forest, talking to themselves, not responding when approached, that sort of thing. Park rangers usually just mark it as possible drug use or mental health issues. Can I look at those reports? She hesitated. They're not public records, but I guess I could pull up some of the older ones as long as no names are included. She printed out 3 reports from the past 5 years. They were brief, clinical in their language. All described similar situations. Individuals found alone in the forest appeared to be talking or whispering to themselves, unresponsive to questions, eventually walked away without incident. In each case, the ranger noted that the person seemed compelled to continue speaking even when addressed. One report included a note. Subject repeatedly stated he was finishing the story and couldn't stop until it was complete. Did any of these people file complaints or come back? I asked. Not that I know of. Like I said, we usually just mark it and move on unless there's a clear danger. I thanked her and left. On the drive back to the RV park, I tried to piece together what I was learning. A story that compelled people to repeat it. People who changed after hearing or telling it. A growing sense that the story itself was somehow active, somehow aware. I was a rational person. I had a degree in journalism, years of experience investigating stories, a finely tuned bullshit detector. I didn't believe in ghosts or monsters or urban legends come to life. But I also couldn't explain the voice recordings, couldn't explain the man I'd seen whispering to the trees, couldn't explain the feeling I'd had since arriving that something was waiting for me to understand. When I got back to the park, Marcus's RV was gone. According to Doris, he'd checked out that morning. Did he say where he was going? I asked. No, just packed up and left. He seemed in a hurry, kept saying he needed to go, that he'd stayed too long already. That afternoon, I tried to work on other podcast material. I had notes on 3 different legends from previous trips, all of which needed editing and structuring. But I couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking about the listener, kept feeling like I needed to understand it better, needed to dig deeper into the story. I realized, with a cold feeling in my stomach, that I was doing exactly what Marcus and the others had done. I was becoming obsessed. Around 5, a family checked into the site next to mine. Parents in their 40s, 2 kids maybe 8 and 10 years old. The dad came over to introduce himself. Jason Miller, he said, shaking my hand. That's my wife Sarah, and our kids Emma and Tyler. We're here for the weekend. Ben Walker, welcome. What brings you out here? I almost told him. I almost said I was researching local legends, almost mentioned the listener, but something stopped me. Some instinct that told me not to spread it further. Just working, I said. I do a podcast. Oh yeah? What about? Different things. History mostly. We talked for a few minutes. They were from Houston, needed to get out of the city for a few days. The kids were excited about the forest, wanted to go exploring. Normal people doing normal things. After he left, I sat in my RV and realized how close I'd come to telling him. The urge had been strong. I'd felt the words forming, felt the desire to share what I knew. It would have been so easy to say, "Have you heard about the listener?" and watch the story spread. That's when I started to get scared, really scared, because I understood now that whatever this was, psychological phenomenon, mass delusion, something else entirely, I was already caught in it. I spent that evening trying to rationalize, tried to convince myself it was just stress, just my imagination being fueled by suggestion and isolation. But then I'd remember the voice recordings I hadn't made, the man whispering to the woods the way Marcus had fled. Around midnight, I heard someone walking outside. Slow, deliberate footsteps on gravel. I looked out the window. It was Jason, the dad from the next RV over. He was walking toward the woods, wearing only a t-shirt and pajama pants. I opened the door. Jason, you okay? He didn't stop, didn't turn around, just kept walking toward the tree line. I could see his lips moving. He was talking to himself. I should have gone after him, should have stopped him. But I was frozen, watching him disappear into the darkness between the trees. Because I knew, somehow, I absolutely knew, that if I followed him, if I got too close, I would hear what he was saying. And if I heard it, really heard it, the story would be complete. I closed and locked the door. Through the walls of the Miller's RV, I could hear Sarah calling for Jason, could hear the kids asking where Daddy was. A few minutes later, I heard her run past my RV toward the office. Doris called the park ranger service. They sent someone out around 1 a.m. I watched from my window as they questioned Sarah as they organized a search. Jason's daughter Emma was crying. His son Tyler just stared at the woods. They found Jason 3 hours later. He was about half a mile in, standing in a small clearing. According to what I heard later, he didn't resist when they let him out. Didn't fight or struggle. He just kept talking, whispering the same things over and over. They couldn't make out the words. Sarah and the kids packed up immediately. I heard her talking to Doris through the thin walls. He's never done anything like this. Never. We need to go home. We need to see a doctor. By dawn, they were gone. Day 4. Sunday, I should have left then too. Should have packed up the RV and driven back to Houston, written off the trip as a loss, maybe seen a therapist about what I thought I was experiencing. Instead, I went into the woods. I told myself it was just to look around the clearing where they'd found Jason. Told myself I was being a responsible journalist investigating the location. But I knew the truth. I needed to be there. The story wasn't complete yet, and something in me needed to finish it. The trail was obvious. Park rangers had trampled the undergrowth during their search. I followed it about 20 minutes into the forest until I reached the clearing. It was small, maybe 30 feet across, ringed by pine trees. Nothing special about it. No markings, no signs of anything unusual, but the silence was absolute. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just perfect, pressing silence that made my ears ring. I stood in the center of the clearing and pulled out my recorder. I don't know why. Some instinct, some compulsion. I turned it on and held it up. "This is Ben Walker," I said. "I'm standing in Sam Houston National Forest in the clearing where Jason Miller was found last night. I'm here because..." I paused. Why was I here? I'm here because I need to understand the story of the listener. I need to know what it wants. The silence pressed in harder. I waited, feeling foolish, feeling terrified. Nothing happened. I was about to leave when I heard it. Not a voice, not words, more like the absence of sound taking shape. Like silence that had learned to speak. And it wasn't coming from outside me. It was coming from inside my head. "Tell me." I stumbled backward, nearly dropped the recorder. The silence shifted, became something else, became expectant, waiting. "Tell you what," I said out loud. "Tell me what happened. Tell me the story." And I understood then. This was what it wanted, what it had always wanted. Someone to tell the complete story. Not the legend, not the folklore version, the real story. What actually happened here, to me, right now. So I did. I stood in that clearing and told my recorder everything. Everything I've written here. From arriving at the RV park, meeting Marcus, the strange voice recordings, Carol in the library, the man whispering to the trees, the Millers, all of it. I spoke for maybe 40 minutes, my voice steady and clear, while the silence listened. When I finished, I felt empty, hollowed out. The recorder was still running, the red light blinking steadily. I walked back to the RV park in a daze. The normal sounds of the forest had returned, birds calling, wind in the trees, insects humming. Everything was ordinary again. Day 5. Monday. I played back the recording from the clearing. It was all there, my entire story, told in my voice, with perfect clarity. But there was something else. Underneath my words, growing stronger as the recording went on, was that breathing sound again, that slow rhythmic inhalation and exhalation. And at the very end, after I'd finished speaking, there was another sound, faint but unmistakable. Someone else's voice, layered under mine, whispering, "Now you know. Now you're part of it. Now you tell it to everyone." I should have deleted it. Should have wiped the recorder, destroyed the files, pretended none of this happened. Instead, I edited it, cleaned up the audio, added an intro and outro, structured it like an episode of my podcast. I titled it, The Listener, A True Story from Sam Houston Forest. I know what I'm doing. I know what's happening to me. I can feel it. This need to share what I learned, to tell the story, to pass it on. It's not quite compulsion, more like purpose. Like I finally understand why I'm here, what I'm supposed to do. I uploaded the episode yesterday. It's already gotten more downloads than anything else I've produced. People are commenting, sharing it, saying it's my best work. They want more details. They're asking questions. Some of them are making plans to visit Sam Houston Forest themselves. I'm packing up the RV now. Time to move on to a new location, find new stories. But I know I'll come back here eventually. Everyone who hears the story comes back eventually. That's how it works, that's how it spreads, and now you've heard it too. You've read this far, absorbed the details, learned about the listener and what it does. You're part of the story now, just like I am. Just like Marcus and David Reeves and Jason Miller and everyone else who couldn't stop themselves from passing it on. You'll think about this. Wonder if it's real. Maybe dismiss it as fiction or creative writing or an elaborate hoax. But it'll stay with you. And someday, maybe soon, maybe months from now, you'll tell someone else. You won't be able to help it. You'll bring it up in conversation, mention it online, share the details with a friend. And when you do, the listener will be there. It's always listening. I'm finishing this account at a rest stop 2 hours south of the forest. I should feel relieved to be leaving. Instead, I feel incomplete, like I left something important behind. I keep thinking about that clearing, about the silence that spoke, about the story that needs to be told again and again. My phone is full of voice memos I don't remember recording, hours of my own voice, describing things I don't recall witnessing, telling versions of the story with details that seem to change each time I play them back. I haven't deleted them. I think I need them. I think they're important. I've been contacted by 3 people since I posted the episode. All of them say they've experienced something similar. All of them say they can't stop thinking about it. All of them want to know more. One of them asked for the exact location of the clearing. I sent it to him. I know I shouldn't have. I know I'm spreading it, making it worse, but I couldn't help myself. The story wants to be told. The story wants to grow. There's a family in the parking lot right now, kids playing on the grass, parents unpacking a cooler for a picnic, normal people on a normal trip. I could walk over there. I could start a conversation. I could mention casually that I do a podcast about folklore. They might ask what I'm working on, and then I could tell them. I can feel the words forming already. Have you ever heard about the listener? It would be so easy, so natural. Just a story, just conversation, just passing the time. But I won't. Not yet. Not to them. I'll wait until I reach the next location. The next forest, the next RV park, the next audience. I'll set up my equipment, press record, and tell the story again. And again. And again. Because that's what I do now. That's what we all do. Everyone who hears it. We become part of it. We spread it. We feed it. And it's always hungry. Always listening. I should go now. I have miles to drive, episodes to plan, stories to tell. But before I leave, I want to say one more thing. To you, reading this right now. You probably think this is fiction. A well-crafted horror story maybe, with that found footage style that's popular these days. You might appreciate the ambiguity, the way it doesn't quite resolve, the way it leaves you uncertain. But here's the thing, I can see you. Not literally, not with my eyes, but I can feel you there reading these words, absorbing this story. I can sense the exact moment you started to wonder if it might be real. The moment you imagined yourself in that clearing, in that silence, hearing that voice. That moment is when you became part of it too. Don't worry. It's not painful. You won't change dramatically. You'll still be yourself. You'll just have this story now living in your head waiting for the right moment to come out. Maybe you'll tell it to someone. Maybe you'll write your own version. Maybe you'll drive to Sam Houston Forest yourself, find that clearing, stand in that silence and call out to see if anything answers. Or maybe you'll do what I did. Maybe you'll try to warn others, try to explain what's happening, try to capture it in words so perfect that everyone will understand and stay away. But they won't stay away. You know that now. The story doesn't warn people off. It draws them in. Every word I've written, every detail I've shared, every attempt at explanation has only made you more curious, more invested, more likely to spread it further. That's what the listener wants. That's what it's always wanted. And now, because you've read this far, because you've absorbed every detail, because you've wondered and questioned and imagined, now it's yours to carry. I'm sorry for that. Or maybe I'm not. It's getting hard to tell what I really feel anymore. I need to go. The road is waiting. The next location is calling. And somewhere, in some forest I haven't even found yet, the listener is waiting for me to arrive and finish the story. Because the story is never really finished. It just finds new ways to be told. By new people. People like you. Story 2. My name is Natalie Brooks. I'm writing this down because I need to remember it correctly. And because the police didn't believe half of what I told them. I don't blame them. I wouldn't have believed me either. This happened 3 weeks ago at Ocala National Forest in Florida. My friend Claire and I had rented an RV for a long weekend. We'd been talking about doing it for months. Just the two of us, away from work, away from our phones, away from everything. Claire had just gotten divorced and I'd been laid off, so we both needed the break. The timing seemed perfect. We left on a Thursday morning in early November. The rental place in Jacksonville gave us a 32-foot RV that smelled like pine sol and had a shower that barely worked. Claire drove because she'd driven her parents' RV a few times growing up. I navigated, though there wasn't much navigating to do once we got on Route 40. Ocala National Forest is huge, over 600 square miles of pine forest and scrub. We'd picked a smaller campground called Hidden Creek, about 20 miles south of the visitor center. The reviews online said it was quiet and had good trails. Perfect for disconnecting, one review said. That's exactly what we wanted. We arrived around 2 in the afternoon. The campground was mostly empty, just our RV, an older couple in a beat-up camper van at the far end, and a family with 2 kids in a tent near the bathroom facilities. The ranger who checked us in was a woman in her 50s named Beth. She took our information and gave us a map of the trails. Cell service is spotty, she said. Sometimes you get a bar or two near the ranger station, but out here, forget it. That's fine, Claire said. We're trying to unplug anyway. Beth nodded. Just make sure you're back before dark if you go hiking. We've had some wildlife activity lately. Nothing dangerous, but we had a group report seeing a black bear last week. She gave us a pamphlet about bear safety, and we drove to our spot, which was a dirt clearing surrounded by palmetto bushes and slash pines. It took us 45 minutes to figure out how to level the RV and hook up the water. Neither of us really knew what we were doing, but we eventually got it stable enough. That first night was nice. We made pasta on the little stove and drank wine and played cards. We talked about Claire's divorce and my job search. She cried a little and I did too. It felt good to be away from everything. Just the two of us in the middle of nowhere. We went to bed around 11. The RV had a main bed in the back and a fold-out couch in the front. Claire took the bed and I took the couch. I remember lying there listening to the sounds of the forest, insects, wind in the trees, something that might have been an owl. I fell asleep thinking about how quiet it was. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone. There was no service, but the clock still worked. I'd woken up because I heard something outside. Footsteps on gravel, maybe. I lay there listening, but the sound didn't come again. I told myself it was an animal and went back to sleep. The next morning, Friday, we decided to do a short hike before it got too hot. Florida in November is mild, but it can still get muggy by noon. We took the map Beth had given us and picked a trail that looped around a small lake about 2 miles from the campground. The trailhead was a 10-minute drive. We parked in a little dirt lot next to a wooden sign that said, Clearwater Loop, 2 miles. There was one other car there, A blue sedan with Georgia plates. We didn't see anyone around. The trail was easy, mostly flat, winding through palmettos and oak trees draped with Spanish moss. We walked and talked. Claire told me about her ex-husband, about how she'd found texts on his phone, about how he'd tried to deny it at first. I listened and made the right noises. We'd been walking for maybe 40 minutes when we saw the boy. He was standing on the trail about 30 feet ahead of us. Just standing there. He looked maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing jean shorts and a red t-shirt with a cartoon character on it that I didn't recognize. He had dark hair, pale skin, and he was smiling at us. Claire saw him first. "Oh," she said. "Hi there." The boy didn't say anything. He just kept smiling. We walked closer. I thought maybe he was lost or separated from his parents. "Hey, buddy," I said. "Are you okay? Where's your mom and dad?" The boy tilted his head slightly. "Where's yours?" he said. His voice was normal, just a kid's voice. But something about the question felt off. Claire laughed a little. "Our parents? They're not here, we're adults." "Everyone has parents," the boy said. He was still smiling. "Well, yeah," I said, "but they're not here. Are yours? Are you camping?" "Are you?" the boy asked. "Yes," Claire said. "We're at Hidden Creek Campground. Are you there too?" The boy didn't answer that. Instead, he asked, "Why did you come here?" "To hike," I said. "To relax. Why are you here by yourself?" "I'm not by myself," the boy said. Claire and I looked around. The trail was empty. Through the trees I could see glimpses of the lake maybe 50 yards away. No one else was visible. "Where are your parents?" Claire asked again. "I don't know," the boy said. He said it casually, like he was answering a question about the weather. "Where are yours?" "You asked that already," I said. I was starting to feel annoyed. "Are you lost? Do you need help?" The boy's smile got a little wider. "Do you?" Claire touched my arm. "Natalie, maybe we should find a ranger or something. He might be lost." "I'm not lost," the boy said. "Are you lost?" "No," I said. "We're on the trail. Look, what's your name?" "What's yours?" the boy asked. "I'm Natalie," I said. "This is Claire." The boy nodded slowly like he was memorizing the information. "Natalie," he said. "Claire." He was still smiling. "What's your name?" Claire asked. The boy didn't answer. He just looked at us. His eyes were dark brown, almost black. He wasn't blinking very much. "Okay," I said. "We're going to keep walking. If you're lost, you should head back that way." I pointed behind us toward the trailhead. "There's a parking lot. Someone can help you there." The boy didn't move. "You should go back too," he said. "We're doing the loop," Claire said. "We'll be fine." "You should go back," the boy repeated. His voice was still flat, pleasant. "It's not safe." "Why not?" I asked. "What's not safe?" The boy didn't answer. He just stood there smiling. Claire pulled my arm. "Come on, Natalie, let's just go." We walked around the boy, giving him a wide berth. As we passed, he turned his head to watch us but didn't move his body, just rotated his head, keeping his eyes on us. I looked back once we'd gone about 20 feet. He was still standing there, still watching, still smiling. "That was weird," Claire said once we were out of earshot. "Really weird," I agreed. "Should we tell someone? Maybe he really is lost." He said he wasn't lost, and he didn't seem upset or scared. Maybe his parents are just up ahead or something. We kept walking. The trail curved away from the lake and into thicker forest. I kept thinking about the boy's questions, the way he'd repeated things back to us. It felt like a game, but I didn't understand the rules. We completed the loop without seeing the boy again or anyone else. When we got back to the parking lot, the blue sedan was still there. We sat in our car for a few minutes drinking water, debating whether to report the boy to a ranger. "He knew we were camping," Claire said. "He knew we came here. So maybe he's not lost. Maybe his family really is around somewhere." "Yeah," I said. And he seemed fine, not scared or anything. We decided to let it go. We drove back to the campground and spent the afternoon reading in folding chairs next to the RV. The older couple drove past at one point and waved. The family with kids was packing up their tent. By evening, they were gone. That night, we grilled burgers on a small portable grill we'd brought. Claire made a salad and we ate while the sun set. It got dark quickly. One of those sudden transitions where it feels like someone flipped a switch. The campground had one security light near the bathroom building, but our site was far enough away that we mostly relied on the RV's exterior light and a battery-powered lantern. We were sitting outside finishing our wine when we heard the sound. It was a child's voice singing, high and thin, coming from somewhere in the trees. We couldn't make out the words at first, just the melody, which was simple and repetitive. Claire set down her wine glass. "Is that—" "Yeah," I said. We listened. The singing continued, getting slightly closer. After a moment, I could make out some of the words. "Round and round, the wheels go round, round and round." "It's that kid," Claire whispered, "from the trail." "Maybe," I said, but I knew it was. The singing stopped. For a few seconds, there was only the usual forest sounds, insects, wind. Then the voice spoke, clear and close. "Natalie, Claire. Our names. Just our names, spoken from the darkness between the trees." Claire stood up. "Hello?" she called out. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" No answer. "Hey," Claire called again. "Are you lost? Come here, we can help you." Nothing. We stood there in the pool of light cast by the lantern, staring into the darkness. I could feel my heart beating fast. The voice had been close, maybe 20 or 30 feet away. Close enough that if the boy was standing there, we should have been able to see him. "Come here," Claire called. "It's okay. We're not going to hurt you." Silence. Then from a different direction, from behind the RV, the boy's voice. "Why did you come here?" Claire grabbed my arm. We both turned toward the back of the RV. The exterior light only illuminated the front and one side. The back was in shadow. "We're camping," I called out. My voice sounded shaky. "We told you that. Where are your parents?" "I don't know," the voice said. It sounded like it was moving again, circling around us. "Where are yours?" "Stop asking that," Claire yelled. "What do you want?" "What do you want?" the voice echoed back. We stood there for another minute, but the voice didn't come again. Eventually, Claire said, "Let's go inside." We gathered our things quickly and went into the RV. I locked the door, which felt stupid. It was just a flimsy RV door, but I did it anyway. We pulled all the curtains closed. "That was really fucking weird," Claire said. She was trying to sound calm, but I could hear the shake in her voice. "Yeah," I said. "Should we call someone?" We both checked our phones. No service. We couldn't even get a single bar. "Maybe in the morning," Claire said. "Maybe we should just go to bed and deal with it in the morning. It's just a kid playing around, probably trying to scare us." "It's working," I said. We tried to laugh about it, tried to convince ourselves it was nothing. But we also checked all the windows twice to make sure they were latched. We turned off most of the lights but left the one in the bathroom on. I lay on the fold-out couch for a long time, listening. The RV made small sounds as it settled, creaks and pops that I hadn't noticed the night before. Every time I heard something, I tensed up, waiting for the knock on the door or the boy's voice calling our names. I must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke up to sunlight coming through the curtains. It was 8:43 a.m. I could hear Claire moving around in the back. "Morning," she said when I sat up. She was already dressed. "I didn't sleep great. You?" "Not really," I said. We made coffee and ate granola bars. In the daylight, the events of the previous night seemed less frightening, more explainable. A kid playing pranks. Maybe a local kid who knew the campground, who liked to scare campers. "Should we tell the ranger?" I asked. "Yeah," Claire said. "Let's drive to the station. Maybe they know the kid." We got ready and drove to the ranger station. which was about 15 minutes away on the main road. Beth was there again, sitting behind a desk in a small office with wood paneling and posters about wildfire safety. "Morning," she said. "How's your stay going?" "Fine," Claire said. "But we wanted to ask you something. We met a boy yesterday on the Clearwater Loop Trail. Maybe 8 or 9 years old, dark hair, wearing a red shirt." Beth's expression didn't change. "A boy?" "Yeah," I said. "He was alone. We asked if he was lost, but he said he wasn't. Then last night we heard him near our campsite. He was singing and saying our names. It was kind of creepy." Beth frowned. "What did he look like exactly?" Claire described him. Beth listened, then shook her head slowly. "We don't have any families with kids that age here right now. There was a family with 2 little kids, maybe 4 and 6, but they checked out yesterday morning. And I haven't seen any boys matching that description." "He was definitely there," I said. "We talked to him on the trail." "I'm not saying you didn't see someone," Beth said, "but there's no one like that registered in the campground. Could have been a local kid. Sometimes people from town come out to hike even if they're not camping." "At night?" Claire asked. "He was in our campsite last night in the dark." Beth's frown deepened. "That's not good. You should have come to get me. If someone's wandering around the campground at night, especially a kid, that's a safety issue." "We tried to call, but there's no service," I said. "Yeah, service is bad out here," Beth said. "Look, I'll drive around and check on things. If I see any kids, I'll talk to them. In the meantime, if you have any more problems, come find me right away, okay? I'm here until 6, then there's another ranger on duty at night. His name's Mark." We thanked her and left. On the drive back to the campground, Claire said, "Maybe we should just leave, go somewhere else." "We paid for 3 nights, I said, "and it's probably nothing, just a kid being weird. Beth will handle it." "Yeah," Claire said, but she didn't sound convinced. We spent the rest of the morning at the campsite reading and trying to relax. Around noon, we decided to go into Ocala to get supplies. We drove into town, went to a grocery store, got sandwich stuff and more wine. We filled up the gas tank, even though we didn't really need to. Anything to kill time, to be around other people. We got back to the campground around 3. As we were unpacking the groceries, the older couple walked over. The man was tall and thin with a white beard. The woman was short and round with glasses. "Hey there," the man said. "We're Jim and Carol. Just wanted to introduce ourselves. We've been here since Wednesday." We introduced ourselves. They seemed nice, retired from Ohio, driving around Florida in their camper van. "You folks see that kid?" Carol asked. Claire and I looked at each other. "What kid?" I asked. "Little boy," Jim said. "Saw him yesterday evening, walking around the campground. We asked if he was okay, and he just smiled at us. Didn't say anything. Then we saw him again this morning over by the bathroom building." "Did he say anything to you?" Claire asked. "Not really," Carol said. "Just asked where we were from. We told him Ohio, and he asked why we came here. I said we were traveling. Then he walked away." "He asked us the same thing," I said. "Did you see him with any adults?" "No," Jim said. "That's why we were a little concerned. Seems too young to be out here alone." We told them about our encounter on the trail and what happened last night. Carol's eyes widened. "He was at your campsite at night?" she said. "That's not right. You should tell the ranger." "We did this morning," Claire said. "She said she'd look into it." Jim shook his head. "Strange. Well, if you see him again, let us know. We'll keep an eye out too." They went back to their site. Claire and I made sandwiches and tried to have a normal afternoon, but we both kept watching the tree line, waiting for the boy to appear. He didn't. Not during the afternoon. Not during dinner. By the time the sun set, I'd almost convinced myself that he wouldn't come back, that maybe Beth had found him and talked to his parents, that it was over. We went to bed early around 10. Claire took her melatonin and was asleep quickly. I lay on the couch, reading by the light of a small lamp. I'd been reading the same page for 10 minutes when I heard it. Tap, 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 on the side of the RV. 3 soft knocks. I froze. The sound came again. Same rhythm, same spot. Tap, tap, tap. I got up slowly and moved to the window near where the sound had come from. The curtain was closed. I listened. No more tapping. I was about to go back to the couch when I heard it again, but this time it was on the other side of the RV. Tap, tap, tap. Then on the back. Tap, tap, tap. Someone was walking around the RV, knocking every few seconds. I went to the back where Claire was sleeping and shook her shoulder. "Claire, wake up." She sat up, groggy. "What?" "Someone's knocking on the RV, walking around it." We both went still and listened. The tapping came again on the front now. Slow, deliberate, tap, tap, tap. "Should we look?" Claire whispered. "I don't know," I said. The tapping continued, circling the RV. Front, side, back, other side, front again, over and over. After maybe the fifth circuit, it stopped. We waited in the darkness. I could hear Claire breathing fast beside me. A minute passed. 2 minutes. Nothing. Then the boy's voice right outside the front door. "Natalie, Claire, are you there?" My stomach dropped. Claire grabbed my hand. We didn't answer. "I know you're there," the voice said. "Why don't you come out?" "Go away," Claire yelled. "Leave us alone." Silence. Then, "Why did you come here?" "We're calling the police," I shouted. It was a bluff. We had no service, but I hoped it would work. "You can't call anyone," the voice said. It sounded amused. "There's no signal." I checked. That sent a chill through me. How did he know? Had he been watching us try to use our phones? "What do you want?" Claire yelled. "What do you want?" the voice replied. Then, after a pause, "I want you to come out." "No," I said. "Go home." "Where are your parents?" "Where are yours?" the voice asked. Then it laughed. It was a child's laugh, high and bright, but there was something wrong with it. It went on too long. The laugh stopped abruptly. Then, "I'll wait." More silence. We stood there in the dark for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 15 or 20 minutes. Eventually, Claire whispered, "Is he still there?" "I don't know," I said. We were too scared to check. We went back to bed, but neither of us slept. We lay there in the dark, listening, waiting for the tapping to start again. It didn't. But around 3 a.m. I heard the singing. That same song from the night before, distant and wavering. It seemed to be moving through the campground, getting closer, then farther, then closer again. I got up and went to the front window. I pulled the curtain back slightly and looked out. The campground was dark except for the single security light. I could see Jim and Carol's camper van. I could see the trees swaying slightly in the wind. And I could see the boy. He was standing at the edge of the tree line, maybe 50 feet from our RV, just standing there, facing us. Even at that distance, even in the dark, I could tell he was smiling. I dropped the curtain and stepped back. My hands were shaking. "Claire," I whispered. She came to the front. "What?" "He's out there, just standing there, watching." She looked out the window, then pulled back quickly. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with him? "I don't know, but we need to leave. In the morning, we're leaving." "Agreed," she said. We stayed up the rest of the night, taking turns watching the window. The boy didn't move. He just stood there, a small, dark shape at the edge of the trees, watching our RV. When the sun finally came up around 6:30, I checked the window again. The boy was gone. We didn't waste time. We got dressed, started unhooking the RV, preparing to leave. We were both exhausted and scared, and we just wanted to get out of there. We were in the process of disconnecting the water hose when Jim came walking over. He looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under his eyes. "You folks okay?" he asked. "We're leaving," Claire said. "Did you hear anything last night?" Jim nodded. "That kid. He was at our camper too. Knocking, singing, saying our names. Carol wanted to call the police, but we don't have service. We were about to drive to town to find a phone." "We're just getting out of here," I said. "This is too weird." "Smart," Jim said. "We're packing up too." He hesitated. "There's something else." This morning when I went to use the bathroom, I saw something. What? Claire asked. Footprints, he said. In the dirt around our camper. Small footprints like from a kid. But they don't go anywhere, they just circle the camper over and over. Then they stop. Stop? I said. What do you mean? I mean they just end, Jim said. Like whoever was making them just vanished in the middle of a step. We stared at him. That's not possible, Claire said. I know what I saw, Jim said. Check around your RV, I bet you'll see the same thing. We walked around our RV. He was right. There were small footprints in the dirt, circling the RV multiple times, and they did just end. The last print was a partial, showing only the front half of a foot and then nothing. This is insane, Claire said. How is that possible? I don't know, I said. But we need to leave. Now. We went back to packing up. It took us another 30 minutes to finish. Jim and Carol were already pulling out when we finally got on the road. We drove straight to the ranger station. Beth was there. When she saw us, she stood up. Everything okay? No, Claire said. That kid was at our campsite all night. He was knocking on the RV, calling our names, singing. And there are footprints that don't go anywhere. We're leaving and we want a refund. Beth's face was serious. I'll process the refund. I'm sorry this happened. I drove around yesterday and I didn't see any kid. I checked the registration. There's no one with children in the campground except you two and Jim and Carol. We saw him, I said, multiple times. And Jim and Carol saw him too. I believe you, Beth said, but I can't explain it. Look, let me ask you something. Did either of you see him during the day, in full sunlight? Claire and I looked at each other. On the trail, yeah, I said. On Friday afternoon. And after that? I thought about it. We'd heard him Friday night. We'd seen him from the window around 3 a.m., but it was dark. We'd heard him Saturday night. No, I said. Not in daylight. Why? Beth was quiet for a moment. Then she said, There have been reports before. Not often, maybe once every few years. People say they see a kid in the forest. Always a boy, always alone, always asking questions. Some people think it's just locals playing pranks, but... She trailed off. But what? Claire asked. Nothing, Beth said. Just stories. Campfire tales, don't worry about it. What stories? I insisted. Beth sighed. Look, it's just local folklore. There's a story that about 20 years ago, a boy went missing in this forest. 8 years old, camping with his family. He wandered off and they never found him. Some people claim they've seen him since, but it's just a story. Oh my God, Claire said. You think we saw a ghost? I think you saw something that scared you, Beth said. Whether it was a ghost or a kid playing tricks or something else, I don't know. But I'm sorry it happened. Here's your refund. She handed us a form to sign and processed the payment back to Claire's credit card. We left the ranger station and drove out of the forest. Neither of us said much. We were both trying to process what had happened, trying to find a rational explanation. We stopped for late breakfast at a diner in Ocala. We were sitting in a booth drinking coffee when Claire's phone buzzed. She'd gotten a text message. She looked at it, then went pale. What? I asked. She showed me the phone. The text was from an unknown number. It said, Why did you come here? That's not funny, I said. Who sent that? I don't know, Claire said. Her hands were shaking. Unknown number. She tried to call it but got a message saying the number was not in service. She blocked it. We drove back to Jacksonville in silence. We returned the RV and went to our separate homes. We agreed to talk in a few days once we'd both had time to process. But things got stranger. That night I was home alone in my apartment. I live on the 3rd floor of a building in downtown Jacksonville. I was getting ready for bed when I heard singing. Faint, but unmistakable. That same song. I went to the window. The street below was empty. The singing continued, seeming to come from outside my door. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. The singing stopped. Then I heard it. Natalie. My name. spoken in a child's voice from right outside my door. I called Claire. "He's here," I said. "At my apartment. I can hear him." "That's not possible," Claire said, but she sounded scared. "Did you look?" "I'm not opening the door," I said. We stayed on the phone for an hour. The voice didn't come back. Eventually, I convinced myself I'd imagined it, that I was just exhausted and traumatized. But the next morning, when I left for a job interview, I found something on my doormat, a single footprint, small, child-sized, made of dirt. I called the police. They took a report, but there wasn't much they could do. No one had seen anyone in the building. The security cameras showed nothing, just the footprint appearing sometime during the night. Claire called me later that day. "I got another text," she said. "It says, 'Where are yours?'" "Block it," I said. I did. It came from a different number. This went on for a week. Texts from unknown numbers, always asking questions. "Why did you come here? Where are your parents? Are you lost? Do you need help?" We both blocked them, but they kept coming from new numbers. Then, 9 days after we left Ocala, Claire disappeared. Her roommate called me. Claire hadn't come home from work. Her car was in the parking lot at her office, but she was gone. Her purse was in the car. Her phone was in her purse. No signs of struggle, just gone. The police investigated. They found nothing. I told them about the boy, about the texts, about everything. They looked at me like I was crazy. They thought maybe Claire had run away, that the divorce had been too much and she'd just left. But I knew better. 3 days after Claire disappeared, I got a phone call. The caller ID said, "Claire Mobile." I answered. "Hello?" I said. "Natalie." It was Claire's voice. "Claire, where are you? Are you okay?" "Why did you come here?" Claire asked. Her voice was flat, wrong. "Claire, what's wrong? Where are you?" "I don't know," Claire said. "Where are yours?" "Where are my what? Claire, talk to me. Do you need help?" Claire asked. Then she laughed. That same laugh. The boy's laugh. I hung up and called the police. They traced the call. It came from Claire's phone, which was still in the evidence locker at the police station. 4 days later, Claire came back. Her roommate found her sitting on the couch in their apartment, still wearing the same clothes she'd disappeared in. Claire didn't remember where she'd been. She said she'd been at work, then she was on the couch. No memory of the days in between. I went to see her. She seemed normal at first. We talked about what happened, about the phone call I'd received. She didn't remember making it. She didn't remember anything. But there was something wrong. I noticed it when we were talking. She'd ask me a question, I'd answer. Then she'd ask the same question again, like she wasn't really listening. And she smiled too much. The same smile. The boy's smile. "Claire," I said, "are you sure you're okay?" "I'm fine," she said. "Why did you come here?" I stared at her. "What?" "Why did you come here?" she repeated. Same tone, same inflection. "Claire, stop it, that's not funny." "What's not funny?" she asked. She tilted her head slightly, the same way the boy had. "I don't understand." I left. I haven't seen Claire since. Her roommate says she's acting strange. She goes to work, comes home, sits on the couch. She answers questions, but sometimes she just repeats what people say. She smiles a lot. The police say there's nothing they can do. She's not hurt, not a danger to herself or others. Just strange. I've been getting the texts again. Different numbers, the same questions. Sometimes I get photos. Pictures of me taken from outside my apartment window, from across the street, from the grocery store. In every photo, if you look closely in the background, you can see a small figure. A boy. Always smiling. Always watching. I don't know what he wants. I don't know what happened to Claire in those 3 days. I don't know if she's really Claire anymore. I've thought about going back to Ocala, about finding that boy and demanding answers. But I'm afraid that if I do, I won't come back either, or I'll come back wrong like Claire. So I'm writing this down instead. I'm documenting everything. If something happens to me, if I disappear or come back different, maybe someone will read this and understand. Last night I had a dream. I was back in the forest, standing on the trail. The boy was there. He wasn't smiling this time. He just looked at me and asked, "Why did you come here?" And I realized I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. We came to disconnect, to relax, to escape. But escape from what? And why there? Why that forest, that campground, that trail? In the dream I asked him, "What do you want?" He tilted his head. "What do you want?" he said. Then he smiled. "Everyone has to answer eventually," he said. "Everyone who comes here has to answer." "Answer what?" I asked. "The questions, yo," he said. "Where are you going? Where did you come from? Why are you here? Everyone has to answer." "I don't know the answers," I said. "Then you'll stay," he said. "Until you do." I woke up. It was 3:17 a.m. My phone was on the nightstand, dark. As I watched, it lit up. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo. Me, asleep in my bed, taken from inside my apartment. Taken minutes ago. And in the corner of the frame, standing in my bedroom doorway, was the boy. Still smiling. "I'm leaving Jacksonville. I don't know where I'll go. Somewhere far from Ocala. Somewhere far from Florida. Maybe it will help. Maybe it won't matter. But I keep thinking about what the boy said in the dream. Everyone who comes here has to answer. I don't think he meant just the forest. I think he meant everywhere. We're all going somewhere, all of us, all the time. And maybe we should know why. I check my windows every night. I keep the lights on. I don't answer unknown numbers. But I know he's still there. I can feel him watching. Sometimes in the middle of the night I hear singing, and sometimes I wonder if I'm still in that forest. If I ever really left. If this apartment, this city, this life, if it's all just another clearing in the trees, another place to wait while he asks his questions. The last text I got was yesterday. It said, "Natalie, it's time to come back." I don't know what that means. I don't know what happens if I do. But I'm starting to think it doesn't matter if I go back or not. I think he's already here. I think he's been here the whole time. Last night, I looked in the mirror, and just for a second before I blinked, I saw him, standing behind me, reflected in the glass. He was smiling, and so was I. Tentar novamente o Claude pode cometer erros. Confira sempre as respostas. Story 1. My name is Allison James. The reflection in the river smiled before I did, and blinked after. That's the detail I keep coming back to, the one I can't explain away with exhaustion or stress or the Xanax I'd been taking since the divorce. I've tried to convince myself it was just a trick of the light, the way water distorts things, but I know what I saw. I know when I blink, and that thing in the water, my face, my body, my reflection, it wasn't synced with me anymore. I should probably start at the beginning. I drove into Fish Lake National Forest on a Tuesday in late September. The RV I'd rented was a 23-foot Winnebago that handled like a boat on wheels, and I'd already scraped it against a gas station pillar in Richfield. The rental company would charge me for that. Everything was costing me lately. The lawyer fees, the apartment deposit, the storage unit for all the furniture David didn't want. The RV trip was supposed to be cheaper than therapy, though I'm not sure that math worked out either. The campground was called Pando Vista, named after the famous aspen grove nearby. The ranger at the entrance booth was a kid, maybe 22, with a sparse beard and a National Park Service polo that looked 2 sizes too big. He barely glanced at my reservation printout. "You're in spot 17, he said. "Back by the lake. Pretty quiet this time of year. How many people are here?" He checked a clipboard. 4 sites occupied, including yours. Season's winding down. We close in 3 weeks. I thanked him and drove through the campground. It was beautiful in that overwhelming way that nature can be when you're from the city. The aspens were turning gold, and the afternoon light came through them in shafts that looked almost solid. The road curved past empty camping pads with their gravel parking spots and fire rings. A few had those bear-proof food lockers. I wondered if there were actually bears. Spot 17 was at the end of a narrow lane that dead-ended at the lake. Fish Lake itself, really more of a reservoir, was maybe 2 miles long and perfectly still. The water looked black in the shade of the trees. My site had a picnic table and a fire ring and not much else. The RV barely fit. I spent an hour getting set up. I didn't know what I was doing. David had always handled the camping stuff on our trips, back when we took trips together. I had to Google how to level the RV and where to connect the water and whether I was supposed to do something with the sewage immediately or wait. By the time I finished, the sun was lower and the temperature had dropped maybe 15 degrees. The couple in the site across the lane from mine came over to introduce themselves. The man was tall and soft around the middle, wearing a Patagonia fleece and glasses with thick black frames. His wife was shorter, dark-haired, pretty in a way that required effort. They both looked about 40. "Hey there," the man said. "I'm Eric. This is Jen. We saw you struggling with the leveling blocks." "I figured it out," I said. "Eventually." "First time in an RV? That obvious?" Jen smiled. "We've all been there. We've got a fifth wheel, been doing this for years. If you need anything, just holler. We're right across the way." "Thanks. I'm Allison." "You out here alone?" Jen asked. She said it casually, but I caught the flicker of concern in her eyes. A woman alone, in a rented RV, in the middle of nowhere. I was used to that look. "Just me," I said. Needed to clear my head. Eric nodded like that made sense. "Good place for it. Pretty isolated. There's one other couple down by the boat launch and some guy in a camper van up near the entrance, but otherwise it's just us." They stayed a few more minutes making small talk. They were from Boulder. Eric worked in tech, something about cloud infrastructure. Jen was a nurse, but between jobs. They'd been on the road for 6 weeks, hitting all the national parks in Utah. They'd be here another 3 days before heading to Capitol Reef. After they left, I made a simple dinner, pasta from a box, jarred sauce, and ate it at the picnic table. The sun set quickly once it started, and the temperature plummeted. I put on a hoodie and a jacket over that, and sat watching the last light drain from the sky. The lake was invisible now, just a presence I could sense beyond the trees. I could hear it, though. Tiny lapping sounds like someone whispering. That's when I saw her. I wasn't looking at the lake directly. I was staring at my phone, scrolling through nothing, when I caught movement in my peripheral vision. I looked up and there she was, standing at the waterline maybe 50 feet from my sight. A girl. Teenage, maybe 16 or 17. She wore a white nightgown that hung to her ankles, and her feet were bare. Her hair was long and dark and wet like she'd just come out of the water. She wasn't moving, just standing there, facing the lake. I stood up. "Hey, you okay?" She didn't respond, didn't turn around. I walked toward her slowly. The ground between my site and the lake was uneven, covered in pine needles and small rocks. I didn't have a flashlight and I stumbled twice. "Hey," I called again. "Are you lost?" When I got within 20 feet of her, she turned her head. Just her head, not her body. It rotated on her neck like an owl's, far enough that I could see her face in profile against the darkness of the water. She was smiling. Then she walked into the lake. Not slowly, not hesitantly. She just walked straight in, the water rising up her nightgown, and she kept walking until the water was at her chest, then her neck, and then she was gone. I ran to the shore. "Jesus, hey, hey." The water was still. No ripples, no disturbance. It was as if she'd never been there. I stood there breathing hard, my heart slamming in my chest. The logical part of my brain said I'd imagined it, that I was tired and stressed and probably dehydrated. But I'd seen her. I'd seen her face when she turned. She'd been smiling like she was posing for a photograph. I went back to the RV and locked all the doors. I didn't sleep well that night. The RV made noises, creaks and pops as the temperature shifted, the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional groan of the suspension. I kept thinking about the girl in the white nightgown. Around 3 in the morning, I convinced myself I should tell someone, call the ranger maybe, report what I'd seen. But report what? A girl walking into a lake? I'd sound insane. I did fall asleep eventually, because I remember waking up suddenly with daylight streaming through the windows. My phone said it was 11:47 a.m. I never sleep that late. Even on weekends, even when I'm trying to, my body wakes me up by 8. I'd gone to bed around 10. That meant I'd slept almost 14 hours. I felt groggy and thick-headed, like I was recovering from anesthesia. I made coffee and sat at the dinette table, trying to shake the feeling. Through the window, I could see Eric and Jen's fifth wheel. Their truck was there, but I didn't see them moving around. After coffee, I felt more human. I decided to walk down to the lake in daylight, see if there was any sign of the girl. Maybe there'd be footprints or her nightgown washed up on shore, or something that would confirm I hadn't hallucinated the whole thing. The lake in daylight was different, beautiful even. The water was clear enough near the shore that I could see the rocky bottom, and the aspens on the far side were a wall of gold. A few ducks paddled near the reeds. I walked the shoreline for 10 minutes. No footprints, no nightgown, no sign anyone had been in the water. I stopped at a spot where the shore curved and formed a small inlet. The water here was perfectly calm like glass. I looked at my reflection. That's when it happened. I was looking at my face in the water, my tired eyes, my hair that needed washing, the line between my eyebrows that never went away anymore. And I blinked. My reflection blinked a half-second later. I froze. I blinked again, deliberately, focusing on the exact moment my eyelids closed. The reflection blinked after. Not at the same time. After. I stepped back from the water. My heart was doing that thing again, that rapid flutter that made my hands shake. I counted to 5 and looked again. The reflection was normal now. When I blinked, it blinked. When I tilted my head, it tilted. I stared at it for a full minute, testing it, and it behaved exactly as it should. I told myself I'd imagined it. The light was weird, or there was a ripple in the water I hadn't noticed, or my brain was still foggy from oversleeping. I walked back to my RV and tried to forget about it. Jen knocked on my door around 2 in the afternoon. "Hey," she said when I answered. "We're grilling burgers tonight. Want to join us?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to be alone to process whatever weird things were happening in my head. But another part of me, the part that had been alone for 3 months since David left, didn't want to sit in an RV by myself. "Sure," I said. "What can I bring?" "Just yourself. We've got plenty." Dinner was at 6. I brought a bottle of wine I'd picked up in Richfield and tried to act normal. Eric grilled burgers on a fancy portable grill while Jen set up a folding table with a checkered tablecloth. They had those LED lanterns that looked like old kerosene lamps. The other couple from the boat launch had joined us, Mark and Simone, mid-50s from Phoenix. Mark was a retired contractor. Simone taught high school biology. They'd driven up in a vintage Airstream that Mark had restored himself. We ate and talked. Normal conversation, where we were from, where we'd been, what we did for work. I gave them the abbreviated version of my story. Recent divorce, needed a break, thought a solo road trip would help. Everyone nodded sympathetically. Jen reached over and squeezed my hand. After dinner, Mark started a fire in Eric and Jen's fire ring. We sat around it in folding chairs, drinking wine and beer. The conversation meandered. Eric told a story about getting their fifth wheel stuck in mud in Wyoming. Simone talked about her students. I mostly listened. Then Mark said, "You guys hear about this place's history?" "What history?" Jen asked. "The lake, Fish Lake. It's named after some settler family from the 1800s. The Fishes, German immigrants. They built a homestead right where the reservoir is now." "What happened to them?" Eric asked. Depends who you ask. Official story is they abandoned the homestead in the winter of 1884. Probably couldn't hack it through the cold. But the local legend is different. Simone rolled her eyes. Here we go. Mark grinned. Hey, I'm just telling stories. According to the locals, the Fish family didn't leave. They drowned. All 5 of them, mother, father, 3 daughters. Went through the ice on the lake during a cold snap. Bodies were never recovered. Jesus, Jen said. That's horrible, I said. Yeah, well. Mark poked the fire with a stick. Like I said, legend. Could be bullshit. But the weird part is people say they still see them sometimes. The daughters especially. Walking around the lake at night in their nightgowns. I felt something cold slide down my spine. Have you seen anything? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Nah, but the ranger kid mentioned it when we checked in. Said some campers report weird stuff. People in old-fashioned clothes walking into the water, voices at night, that sort of thing. Eric laughed. Come on, Mark. You're trying to spook us. I'm just saying what I heard. The conversation moved on to other things, but I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about the girl I'd seen, her white nightgown, her wet hair, the way she'd smiled before walking into the water. I excused myself around 9 and went back to my RV. I locked the door and closed all the curtains. Then I sat at the dinette table with my laptop and searched for information about the Fish family. I found almost nothing. A few genealogy websites mentioned a Hans Fish who'd settled in Sevier County in 1879 with his wife Greta and their children. There was a note about the family leaving the area in the 1880s, but no details. No mention of drowning. No legend about ghosts. But I did find one thing, a scanned newspaper article from 1885. The headline read, Mysterious Disappearance of Fish Family. The article was brief and full of old-fashioned language, but the gist was that the family had vanished without a trace during the winter. Their homestead was found abandoned, the door open, food still on the table. Search parties combed the area but never found any bodies. The last line of the article stuck with me. Local residents report strange occurrences near the Fish homestead, including the sound of children's laughter and the sighting of figures on the frozen lake. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking again. That night I had the nightmare. I was standing at the edge of the lake. It was dark, but I could see perfectly. That strange dream vision where everything is clear, even though it shouldn't be. The water was frozen solid, and there were cracks running through the ice like a shattered windshield. 3 girls stood on the ice. They wore white nightgowns and their hair was wet and frozen. Their faces were gray, bloodless. They were singing something, a song in a language I didn't understand. One of them, the oldest, maybe 17, turned and looked at me. Her eyes were clouded over, white as milk. You look like us now, she said. I looked down. I was wearing a white nightgown. My feet were bare on the ice. My toes were blue. The ice cracked beneath me. I woke up gasping. The RV was freezing. My breath was visible in the air. The heater had shut off. I checked my phone. 4:17 a.m. I tried to turn the heater back on, but the switch did nothing. I checked the propane gauge. It was full. I tried the lights. Nothing. The electricity was out. I wrapped myself in blankets and waited for dawn. When light finally started seeping through the curtains, I got dressed and went outside. Eric and Jen's fifth wheel was dark. So was Mark and Simone's Airstream. The whole campground looked dead. I walked over to Eric and Jen's site. Their truck was there, the fifth wheel hitched to it, but everything was closed up. I knocked on the door. Eric, Jen, you guys okay? No answer. I knocked harder. Hey, your power out too? The door opened. Eric stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt. His face was blank, expression completely neutral. Can I help you? He said. The power's out. My heater died last night. I was wondering if yours... Everything's fine here, Eric said. His voice was flat, monotone. Are you okay? I asked. He stared at me. He didn't blink. I counted, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15, and he didn't blink once. I'm fine, he said. Then he closed the door. I backed away slowly. Something was very wrong. I went to Mark and Simone's Airstream, knocked on their door. No answer. I knocked again, called their names. Nothing. I walked back toward my RV, my mind racing. Maybe I should drive to the ranger station, report a problem with the power, or maybe I should just leave. Pack up and go, find another campground or a hotel. But when I got to my RV, I saw it. Someone had taken all my supplies, the groceries I'd left in the outdoor storage compartment, my cooler, my camping chair, everything, and arranged them in a circle on the ground. The circle was maybe 10 feet across, perfectly round. In the center was my sleeping bag, unzipped and spread out flat. My sleeping bag had been inside the RV. I'd locked the door. I checked the door now, still locked. I unlocked it and went inside. The RV looked normal except for one thing. My sleeping bag was gone. I grabbed my car keys and phone and got back outside. I didn't care about the RV deposit anymore. I was leaving. But my rental car, the one I'd towed behind the RV, was gone. Just gone. The tow bar was still attached to the RV, still locked, but the car wasn't there. I stood there staring at the empty space where my car should have been. My brain couldn't process it. The tow bar was designed so you couldn't disconnect without a key. I had the only key. I heard something behind me. I turned. The girl in the white nightgown was standing at the edge of my campsite, just inside the tree line. She was smiling. "What do you want?" I said. She tilted her head. Then she raised her hand and pointed, not at me, but past me, toward the lake. I looked. In the morning light, I could see the water clearly. I could see my reflection on the surface. My reflection was waving at me. I wasn't waving. I looked back at the girl. She was gone. I ran. I didn't have a plan. Just knew I needed to get away from the campsite, away from the lake. I ran down the road toward the entrance booth, stumbling on the gravel, my breath coming in gasps. The campground felt different now, wrong. The trees were too close together, the shadows too dark. The road seemed longer than I remembered. I passed empty campsites that I didn't think had been there before. Campsites with fire rings full of white ash, with picnic tables covered in carvings I couldn't read. I ran for what felt like 20 minutes. My legs were burning, my lungs aching. The entrance should have been close. I'd only driven maybe half a mile from the booth to my site. But the road kept going. I stopped, bent over with my hands on my knees trying to catch my breath. When I looked up, I was standing in front of my RV. Spot 17, right back where I started. "No," I said. "No, no, no." I turned and ran in the opposite direction toward the boat launch. Maybe Mark and Simone would be normal. Maybe they could help. But when I got to their site, the Airstream was gone. There was just an empty gravel pad with a fire ring. I checked my phone. No signal. The time said 7:42 a.m., but I'd been running for at least half an hour. I tried to call 911 anyway. Nothing. I tried to open my GPS app. It loaded but showed my location as blank space, no roads, no markers, nothing. I heard voices. A conversation, quiet but close. I followed the sound to Eric and Jen's site. They were sitting at their table eating breakfast, eggs and bacon, orange juice, coffee. They looked normal. Jen in a fleece jacket, Eric in his thick-framed glasses. They were laughing about something. I approached slowly. "Eric? Jen?" They both looked at me, smiled. "Hey, Allison," Jen said. "Want some coffee?" "What's going on?" I said. "Where's Mark and Simone? Where's my car?" "Your car," Eric said. "You drove the RV, remember?" I towed a car, a blue Hyundai. It was attached to my RV and now it's gone. They looked at each other, then back at me. "I don't remember seeing a car," Jen said. "Are you feeling okay?" Eric asked. "You look tired." "I'm fine, I stopped. Eric wasn't blinking again, and Jen's smile was too wide, her lips stretched too far. "Why don't you sit down?" Jen said. "Have some breakfast." No, I need to leave." "But you just got here," Eric said. I've been here 2 days. Has it been that long? Jen said. She looked at Eric. Doesn't feel like 2 days. Eric shook his head. Doesn't feel like any time at all. I backed away. Stay away from me. We're just trying to help, Jen said. She stood up. So did Eric. They moved in perfect synchronization like mirror images of each other. I turned and ran again. I spent the next few hours, at least I think it was hours, but my phone wasn't changing anymore, stuck at 7:42 a.m., trying to find a way out of the campground. Every direction led me back to spot 17. Every road looped around to my RV. The forest between the campsites was thick with deadfall and underbrush, impossible to push through. Around what felt like noon, I gave up and went back to my RV. I locked myself inside and sat at the dinette table, trying to think. The water. Everything started with the water. The girl had come from the lake. My reflection had acted wrong in the lake. Maybe that was the key. I didn't want to go to the lake. Every instinct I had screamed at me to stay away from it. But I couldn't stay in the RV forever. I couldn't keep running in circles. I found a kitchen knife in the RV's drawer. Not much of a weapon, but it was something. Then I walked down to the water. The lake was calm. The afternoon sun reflected off the surface in a sheet of gold. It looked beautiful, peaceful. I stood at the edge and looked at my reflection. At first it seemed normal. Same face, same body, same stance. But then I noticed the details. My reflection's eyes were open wider than mine. Its smile was just a bit too wide. And it was breathing at a different rhythm, shallow and fast while I breathed slow and deep. "What are you?" I said. The reflection's mouth moved. The words came a split second after, like a badly dubbed movie. "I'm you." "No, you're not." "I'm you," it repeated. "The you that stayed. The you that let it happen." "Let what happen?" The reflection smiled wider. Its teeth were gray. "You know, you remember. The water, the cold, the cracks spreading beneath you. I've never been here before, but you have. You came here when you were 17, with your family. Your mother wanted to show you the aspens. You all went out on the ice." "That's not true. My family never." "The ice broke. You all went under. Your mother first, then your father. Your little sister tried to swim, but the water was so cold. You felt your lungs freeze. You felt the light disappear. Stop it. You died here, Allison. This is where you died. This is where you stayed." I stumbled backward. "I'm not dead. I'm standing here. I'm alive." "Are you?" The reflection tilted its head. "Look around. What's alive here?" I looked. The trees were still, not a whisper of wind. The ducks I'd seen that morning were gone. There were no birds, no insects, no sound except the gentle lapping of water. "Where are Eric and Jen?" I said. "Where are the other campers?" "They're here. They're always here. Everyone who stays becomes part of it. Part of the lake, part of the water, part of the cold. I'm leaving. I'm getting in my RV and I'm driving out of here." The reflection laughed. It was my laugh, but wrong. Too high, too sharp. "You can't leave. You're part of it now. You've been part of it since you looked in the water, since you let me in." "Let you in where?" "Inside." I felt it then. A cold presence in my chest, in my lungs, in my throat. Like someone had poured ice water into my veins. I gasped and fell to my knees. The reflection was speaking, but I couldn't hear it anymore. The cold was spreading, filling me up. My fingers went numb. My face went numb. The knife fell from my hand. I heard footsteps behind me, multiple sets of feet on the rocky shore. "She's ready," someone said. It was Jen's voice. "Help her up," Eric's voice. Hands grabbed my arms, lifted me. I couldn't fight them. I couldn't even turn my head to see who was touching me. The cold had paralyzed me. They walked me to the water's edge. I tried to scream, but my throat wouldn't work. "It's easier if you don't fight," Jen said. Her voice was kind, gentle. We all fought at first, but then you realize it's not so bad. Being here, being part of it. You don't have to feel anything anymore. No pain, no sadness. Just the water. Just the cold, Eric said. They pushed me forward. My feet entered the water. It was freezing, much colder than it should have been in September. I wanted to pull back, but my legs wouldn't respond. I could see my reflection in the water ahead of me. It was smiling, waiting. The water was at my waist now. Then my chest. The cold was everything, filling every cell, every thought. I was disappearing into it. Just before my head went under, I saw them, the 3 girls in white nightgowns, standing on the shore where I'd been. They were holding hands, singing in that language I didn't understand. The oldest one waved at me. I went under. The cold broke with a gasp, and I was back on the shore, lying on my side, my lungs burning. I coughed up water, not lake water, something darker, thicker. It stained the rocks black. I rolled onto my back. The sky above was gray, though I couldn't tell if it was clouds or dusk. My phone was next to me. I picked it up with numb fingers. The date said October 3rd. 5 days had passed. I sat up slowly. My body felt wrong. Too light. Too empty. Like something had been removed from me. Eric and Jen's 5th wheel was gone. So was Mark and Simone's Airstream. The entire campground was empty except for my RV. I walked to spot 17. The circle of supplies was gone, everything back where it belonged. My sleeping bag was inside the RV. My rental car was attached to the tow bar. Everything was normal, except me. I walked to the lake one more time. I had to know. My reflection was normal. When I blinked, it blinked. When I raised my hand, it raised its hand. When I tilted my head, it tilted. But there was something in its eyes. Something looking out at me from behind my own face. "Are you in there?" I whispered. The reflection smiled. I didn't. I left Fish Lake National Forest that afternoon. I drove straight through to Salt Lake City, returned the RV, got on the first flight back to San Francisco. I told myself I'd had some kind of breakdown, that the stress and the divorce and the Xanax had caused a dissociative episode. That's what the therapist said when I finally went to see one 3 weeks later. But I know what happened. I know what I saw, and I know that something came back with me. It's small things at first. I'll catch my reflection in a window and it'll be smiling when I'm not. I'll see myself in a mirror and my eyes will be open too wide. Sometimes when I'm alone at night I hear whispering, that same language the girls were singing, and it's coming from inside my apartment. Last week I was washing dishes and I looked down at my hands in the soapy water. They stayed there for a moment after I pulled them out. My reflection in the water was slower than me. I don't sleep much anymore. When I do, I dream of ice and cold and the feeling of drowning. I dream of 3 girls in white nightgowns waiting for me on a frozen shore. The worst part is, sometimes I want to go back. There's a pull, like a fishhook in my chest, tugging me toward Utah, toward Fish Lake, toward the cold and the darkness and the peace of being nothing. I fight it. Every day I fight it. But I don't know how long I can keep fighting something that's already inside me. My name is Allison James. The reflection in the river smiled before I did, and blinked after. And now I'm not sure which one of us is real anymore. 3 months later, I went back. I can't explain why. One morning I woke up and I was driving east on I-80, my suitcase packed, my apartment locked behind me. I don't remember making the decision. It felt like sleepwalking, like someone else was controlling my hands on the wheel. By the time I realized what I was doing, I was already in Utah. I told myself I would just drive past Fish Lake, just see it from the highway, prove to myself that it was a real place, that what happened was real. Then I'd turn around and go home, but I took the exit, and I drove to Pando Vista Campground. The ranger at the entrance booth was the same kid from September. He didn't recognize me. "Just you today?" he asked. "Just me?" He checked his computer. "We've got space. Where do you want to be?" I opened my mouth to say anywhere, give me any spot, I don't care. But what came out was Spot 17. He gave me a map and I drove back through the empty campground. It was December now, off-season. The place was deserted. Most of the facilities were shut down for winter. Spot 17 looked the same. The picnic table, the fire ring, the view of the lake. The water was partially frozen, gray ice spreading from the shores. I parked and got out. The cold hit me immediately, that bone-deep cold I remembered from my dreams. I walked to the water's edge. My reflection was already there, waiting. It smiled when it saw me. "I knew you'd come back," it said. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want you to stay. We all do. It's lonely here in the cold." "Who's we?" The reflection gestured. I looked around and saw them, shapes in the trees, figures standing in the water. Eric and Jen, Mark and Simone, the 3 girls in white nightgowns. Others I didn't recognize. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all of them watching me with empty eyes. "You belong with us," the reflection said. "You've always belonged with us. Ever since you looked in the water and let me see you, really see you." "I'm not dead," I said. "I'm alive. I'm real." "Are you so sure?" I thought about the last 3 months, the blank spots in my memory, the mornings I'd wake up somewhere I didn't remember going, the way people had started looking at me, that mixture of concern and fear, like they were talking to someone who wasn't quite there. The reflection reached up from the water. Its hand broke the surface, dripping and pale. "Come home, Allison," it said. "Come back to the cold. Doesn't hurt anymore, remember? Nothing hurts here." I looked at its hand. I thought about taking it. The hook in my chest pulled tighter. I stepped forward, my foot touching the water. The ice spread beneath me, solid and white. I took another step. The figures in the trees moved closer, whispering their welcome. I took another step. The reflection smiled wider. And I realized I was smiling too. For the first time since September, we were synchronized. I took one more step, and the ice welcomed me home. Rangers report, December 18th. Found abandoned vehicle at Spot 17, Pando Vista Campground. No sign of occupant. Personal effects inside vehicle, including wallet belonging to Allison James, SFCA. No footprints leading away from site. Search of surrounding area conducted. Negative results. Water partially frozen. Lake too cold for diving search until spring thaw. Footprints found leading to lake edge. Stopped at waterline. No evidence of individual entering water or moving away from shore. Footprints simply ended. Case referred to county sheriff. Recommend continued investigation in spring. Note: this is the 4th disappearance at this location in the past 6 years. Recommend permanent closure of Spot 17 and additional safety measures. Additional note: during site documentation, camera equipment malfunctioned repeatedly near the waterline. All photos show distortion, blur near water's edge. One photo appears to show a figure standing in lake, but must be reflection or camera error as no one was present during documentation. Unsent email draft, found on Allison James's laptop. To David subject: I think I need to tell you something. I keep starting this email and deleting it. I don't know what I'm trying to say or if you'd even believe me. You probably wouldn't. You never believed me about a lot of things. I saw something in Utah, or I became something. I'm not sure which. I've been reading about the brain, about how memories work, about what happens when you have trauma. Did you know that false memories feel completely real? That your brain can invent entire experiences that never happened and you can't tell the difference? But I don't think that's what happened to me. I think I died in Utah and something else came back. Or maybe I never left. Maybe I'm still there in the water, in the cold, and this whole life I've been living for the past 3 months is just the dream of a drowning woman. You'd tell me I'm being dramatic. You'd tell me to see my therapist, take my medication, get some sleep. And you'd be right. Those are all sensible things to do. But what if you're part of the dream too? What if you were never real? What if our whole marriage was just something I invented to avoid the truth? That I've been dead for a very long time, and I just forgot. I'm going back to Fish Lake. I have to know. If I don't come back, I guess that means I was right. I'm sorry for everything. For being difficult. For not being what you needed. For leaving like this. But mostly I'm sorry that I can't tell if any of it was real. Love, Allison P.S. Check your reflection sometimes. Make sure it's moving the way it should. Final entry, found in notebook in vehicle. It's been 3 days since I arrived. I haven't slept. I'm not sure I can sleep anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I see the lake. I see the ice. I see myself drowning. But when I open them, I'm still here. Still breathing. Still real. Am I real? This morning I walked to the water and looked at my reflection. It looked back. We stared at each other for a long time. Am I you? I asked. Or are you me? It didn't answer. Just smiled that smile I've been seeing for months. The ice is spreading, it's only December, but the whole lake is freezing over. Too fast, too thick. I can hear it cracking at night, it sounds like singing. The 3 girls visited my car last night. They knocked on the windows, polite, gentle knocks. When I looked out, they were standing in a row, still wearing their white nightgowns. Their hair was frozen, their lips were blue. The oldest one waved at me. The same wave she gave me when I went under. I think I understand now. This is where I die. Or where I died, or where I'm dying. Time doesn't work right here, everything happens at once, the drowning, the waking, the return, the ending. It's all the same moment playing over and over like a reflection trapped between mirrors. I'm going to walk out on the ice, I'm going to find the place where it's thinnest, and I'm going to meet myself on the other side. If you find this, don't look for me. I'm already where I need to be. And if you ever visit Fish Lake National Forest, if you ever camp at Spot 17, if you ever look into the water, just make sure you blink at the same time as your reflection. Make sure it's really you looking back. Because if it's not, if it's something else, then it's already too late. Just like it was for me. My name was Allison James. The reflection in the river smiled before I did and blinked after. Now, I am the reflection, and I'm waiting for you. Story 2. My name is Kate Brennan, and I need to write this down while I still remember who I am. Not because I think anyone will believe me. I'm not sure I believe it myself some days, but because if I don't document what happened in Ocala National Forest last September, I'm afraid I'll convince myself it was all in my head. That's the thing about losing time. Once you can't trust your own memory, you start questioning everything. I should probably start with why we went in the first place. My boyfriend Marcus had bought the RV 3 months earlier. A 2015 Winnebago that he'd gotten for a steal from a divorced dentist in Tallahassee. We'd been planning the trip for weeks. 4 days of camping in Ocala, hiking the trails, disconnecting from our phones, from work, from the apartment in Gainesville where we'd been living on top of each other since the pandemic. Marcus worked from home now as a software developer, and I'd been teaching online courses in sociology. We needed space, literal and otherwise. The first red flag was so small I almost didn't notice it. We arrived at the campground around 2:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. I remember checking my phone for the time because Marcus was annoyed that I was still looking at it. "You promised," he said. Not angry, just disappointed, which was worse. "I'm just checking the time," I told him. "We have a watch." "Your watch." I nodded at the Timex on his wrist. "Our watch, for the weekend." I put my phone in the glove compartment and tried to embrace the digital detox or whatever we were calling it. The campground was mostly empty. It was September, past the summer crowds but before the winter snowbirds arrived. We'd chosen a spot on the outer loop, away from the bathhouse and the other RVs. The forest pressed close on 3 sides. Sand pine and saw palmetto, that scrubby Florida vegetation that looks dead even when it's thriving. Marcus backed the RV into the spot on his second try. He was good at spatial things like that. We got out to look around, and that's when I noticed my watch. I'd put it on that morning, I was sure of it. I'd been tracking my cycle, and I remembered checking it at breakfast, 10:17 a.m. Now standing in the campground, I looked at my wrist and saw 2:30 p.m., which was fine except we'd left at 11:00 a.m. and the drive from Gainesville was only 45 minutes. "Did we stop somewhere?" I asked Marcus. He was unhooking the water line. What? On the drive, did we stop? No. Why? My watch says we left 3.5 hours ago. He laughed. Your watch is broken. We left at 11. I know we left at 11, that's what I'm saying. So your watch is wrong. He turned back to the hookups. I stared at my wrist. The second hand was moving smoothly. The watch was working fine. But unless we'd somehow lost 90 minutes on a 45-minute drive, something was off. Maybe you put it on earlier than you thought, Marcus said, not looking at me. Maybe. But I hadn't. I was sure of it. We spent the rest of the afternoon setting up camp. Marcus leveled the RV and connected the utilities while I unpacked our food and made sure the propane was working. By the time we were done, it was getting dark. The sun set fast down here, even in September. 1 minute the forest was golden, the next it was gray, and then it was just dark. We made dinner on the camp stove. Pasta with jarred sauce, nothing fancy. We ate at the picnic table outside and tried to pretend we were having a good time. The truth was we'd been fighting a lot lately. Little things, mostly. Marcus thought I was distant. I thought he was oblivious. We'd stopped having sex weeks ago, and neither of us wanted to acknowledge it. This is nice, when he said, chewing. Yeah. You don't sound convinced. I'm just tired. We've been here 4 hours. I didn't correct him. We'd been there more like 6, but I wasn't going to argue about time again. After dinner, we sat outside with a Coleman lantern between us and watched the darkness settle into the trees. There were no other campers nearby. The closest RV was 3 spots down, and those people had left after lunch. We could hear I-75 in the distance, a constant white noise of traffic, but otherwise it was quiet. I'm glad we did this, Marcus said. Me too. We needed this. I know. He reached across the table and took my hand. His palm was warm and slightly damp. We're going to be okay, Kate. I wanted to believe him. We went to bed around 10. I know it was 10 because Marcus checked his watch and announced it like he was proud of us for being outdoorsy. We brushed our teeth in the tiny RV bathroom, changed into our sleeping clothes, and climbed into the bed above the cab. The mattress was thin and smelled faintly of mildew, but we'd brought our own sheets and pillows. Marcus fell asleep almost immediately. He always did. I lay there listening to him breathe, feeling the wall of his back against mine, and stared at the curved ceiling of the RV. The darkness outside was complete. No streetlights, no moon, just black. I thought about my sister Emma. She'd died when I was 12 and she was 9. She'd been a sleepwalker, and one night she walked right out of our house in Columbus and into a retention pond 3 blocks away. They found her the next morning, floating face down, still in her nightgown. The doctors said she'd probably never woken up, that she'd drowned in her sleep and never knew what was happening. I hadn't thought about Emma in months, years maybe. But lying there in the dark, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about how she'd just wandered off into the night with no idea she was in danger. I must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke up suddenly, completely disoriented. The RV was still dark. Marcus was still asleep beside me. I reached for my phone out of habit before remembering I'd left it in the glove compartment. Then I felt for my watch. 4:17 a.m. We'd gone to bed at 10. I'd slept 6 hours, which was normal for me. But something felt wrong. The air felt different, heavier, like the oxygen had been partially replaced with something else, and my mouth was dry in a way that suggested I'd been asleep much longer than 6 hours. I climbed down from the bed carefully, trying not to wake Marcus. My legs felt unsteady, like I'd been lying down for days. I went to the bathroom and drank water straight from the faucet, then looked at myself in the mirror. I looked wrong. Not dramatically wrong. I still had the same face, the same brown hair, the same tired eyes. But something was off. Like a photograph that's been very slightly manipulated and you can't quite put your finger on what changed. I went back to bed. Marcus stirred slightly but didn't wake. I lay there until the windows started to gray with dawn, and then I got up and checked his watch. 9:47 a.m. We'd slept nearly 12 hours. Marcus woke up groggy and confused. What time is it? Almost 10. No way. He looked at his watch and frowned. That can't be right. When did you last change the battery? 6 months ago. He sat up, rubbing his face. I feel like I got hit by a truck. Me too. Must be the air here. All that oxygen. I didn't point out that oxygen was supposed to make you feel better, not worse. We made coffee on the camp stove and sat outside. The morning was already hot and humid, and the forest had that heavy, waiting quality that Florida forests get before a storm. But the sky was clear. No clouds anywhere. Want to go for a hike? Marcus asked. Sure. We'd brought a map of the trails, and we decided on the Yearling Trail, an easy 3-mile loop through pine flatwoods and scrub. We packed water and snacks, locked the RV, and headed out around 11. The trail was well marked and mostly flat. We saw a few other hikers, a couple in their 60s, a woman with 2 dogs, but otherwise we were alone. The forest here was beautiful in a stark way. Tall pines with bare trunks, palmetto scrub that rattled when the wind blew, occasional oaks draped in Spanish moss. It should have been peaceful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. I'm not prone to paranoia. I'm a sociologist. I study human behavior and social systems. I believe in data and evidence, not feelings or intuition. But walking that trail, I felt eyes on us constantly. Not human eyes. Something else. Something that moved when we moved and stopped when we stopped. Do you feel that? I asked Marcus. Feel what? Like we're being watched. He looked around. There's probably deer. It doesn't feel like deer. What does deer watching feel like? I didn't answer. We kept walking. We finished the loop and got back to the RV around 2:30. At least that's what Marcus's watch said, but it felt later. The light had that late afternoon quality, gold and slanting, even though it should have been early afternoon. I'm exhausted, Marcus said. It was only 3 miles. I know, but I'm wiped. He climbed into the RV and lay down on the couch. I'm going to close my eyes for a minute. It's the middle of the day. Just a few minutes. I sat outside and tried to read the paperback I'd brought, a mystery novel I'd been working through for weeks, but I couldn't focus. The words kept swimming on the page, and I kept having to reread sentences. After 20 minutes, I gave up and went inside to check on Marcus. He was asleep on the couch, snoring softly. His face looked peaceful, almost childlike. I sat in the captain's chair and watched him for a while. Then I noticed something odd. The clock on the microwave said 5:47 p.m. But Marcus's watch, I could see it on his wrist from where I was sitting, said 2:46 p.m. I got up and checked the clock on the oven. It matched the microwave, 5:47. I went to the bedroom and found my watch. 2:47 p.m. Someone's clock was wrong, but I didn't know whose. I went back outside and looked at the sky. The sun was definitely lower than it should be at 2:47, but not as low as it should be at 5:47. It was somewhere in between, like the day couldn't decide what time it wanted to be. I sat at the picnic table and tried to think rationally. Clocks could be wrong. Batteries could die. Daylight saving time could cause confusion, except it wasn't November yet. There had to be a logical explanation, but I couldn't think of one. Marcus woke up around what his watch said was 4:15 p.m. and what the RV's clock said was 7:15 p.m. The sun was setting, which suggested the RV was right. He stumbled outside, looking disoriented. How long was I out? Couple hours, I said. It feels like longer. How much longer? He shrugged. I don't know, like a lot longer. We made dinner, hot dogs and beans, camping food, and ate as the last light drained from the sky. Marcus kept checking his watch and frowning. I think it's broken, he finally said. Maybe. Or the RV clocks are wrong. Maybe. You don't sound convinced. I wasn't, because I remembered reading once about circadian rhythms and how humans have an internal sense of time that can be surprisingly accurate, and my body was telling me that we'd lost time somewhere, that the hours we'd experienced didn't match the hours that had actually passed. Let's just go to bed, I said. We can figure it out tomorrow. We cleaned up dinner and went inside. It was only 7:30 by the RV clocks, but we were both exhausted. We got ready for bed, and Marcus was asleep before I finished brushing my teeth. I lay there in the dark and tried to think about anything except Emma. But I kept seeing her in my mind, her small body floating in the retention pond, her nightgown spread around her like wings. The police had said she probably walked there in less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes of unconscious wandering and she was dead. I wondered how long it would take me to walk away from the RV if I started sleepwalking. How far I could get into the forest before something stopped me. I must have fallen asleep because suddenly I was jerking awake, my heart hammering. The RV was completely dark. Marcus was still asleep beside me, but something had changed. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe, and there was a smell, faint but distinct, like wet earth and rotting vegetation. I reached for my watch. The luminous hands showed 3:22 a.m. We'd gone to bed at 7:30. I'd slept 8 hours, but my body felt like I'd slept for much longer. My joints were stiff. My muscles ached. My tongue was thick in my mouth and my eyes felt gummy with sleep. I got up and went to the bathroom, moving carefully in the dark. I didn't want to turn on the lights and wake Marcus. I sat on the toilet and tried to piece together what was happening. We were losing time when we slept. That was the only explanation. Somehow, more hours were passing than we were experiencing, which was impossible. Time didn't work that way. Unless it did. Unless there was something about this place that made time behave differently. I finished in the bathroom and went to the window above the kitchenette. I pulled back the curtain and looked outside. Something was standing at the edge of the forest. I couldn't make out details. It was too dark and the thing was just a shape against the trees. But it was person-sized and it was standing completely still, facing the RV. I watched it for a long time. It didn't move, didn't even seem to breathe. Just stood there like a statue. Then, very slowly, it took a step forward. I let the curtain fall and backed away from the window. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I wanted to wake Marcus, but I didn't know what I'd tell him. That I'd seen a shape in the woods? That it had moved toward us? He'd think I was being paranoid. I went back to bed and lay there rigid, listening, waiting for sounds of footsteps or movement outside. But there was nothing, just the constant whisper of traffic from the interstate and the occasional creak of the RV settling. I didn't sleep again that night. I lay there until the window started to gray with dawn, and then I got up and checked Marcus's watch. 2:34 p.m. We'd gone to bed at 7:30 the previous evening. Marcus's watch said we'd slept 19 hours. The RV clock said we'd slept 7. My body said we'd slept much, much longer. Marcus woke up slowly, like he was swimming up through deep water. When he finally opened his eyes, he looked confused and slightly scared. "Kate, I'm here. What time is it?" "I don't know." He looked at his watch and sat up quickly. "That can't be right. It's been wrong since we got here." "No, I mean..." He looked around the RV like he was trying to orient himself. "I feel like I've been asleep for days." "Me too. What's happening?" I didn't have an answer. We got up and went outside. The day was overcast and muggy, and the forest looked darker than it had yesterday. The trees seemed closer, like they'd moved in during the night. "I want to leave," I said. "What?" "I don't like it here. Something's wrong." "Kate, we just got here." "No, we got here 2 days ago, or I don't know how long ago, but something's wrong with time here." Marcus rubbed his face. "You're not making sense." "I know I'm not, but I'm not crazy. Look at your watch. Look at the RV clocks. They don't match. And we keep sleeping longer than we mean to. So our watches are broken. Both of them, and the RV clocks are right, but they don't match how tired we feel." He didn't have an answer for that. "I saw something last night," I said. "Outside, standing at the edge of the trees." "What kind of something?" "I don't know. A person, maybe. Or something shaped like a person." "Kate, I know how it sounds. But I'm telling you something is wrong here. Marcus was quiet for a long time, then he said, "Okay, let's pack up and leave." "Really? If you're this uncomfortable, we should go." I felt a rush of relief so strong it made my knees weak. "Thank you. But let's eat breakfast first, I'm starving." We made scrambled eggs and toast on the camp stove. While we ate, I kept glancing at the forest, looking for the figure I'd seen the night before. But there was nothing there. Just trees and scrub and shadows. After breakfast, Marcus went to unhook the utilities, while I started packing up inside the RV. I was putting away the food when I realized something was wrong. The bread we'd brought was moldy, not just a little moldy, completely covered in green and black growth like it had been sitting out for weeks. And the milk in the mini fridge had curdled into chunks. "Marcus," I called. "What?" "The food is spoiled." He came inside and looked at the bread. "We just bought that 2 days ago." "I know." He opened the fridge and pulled out the milk. It sloshed in the container, thick and separated. He poured some into the sink and we both watched it glop out in gray-green lumps. "That's not possible," he said. "I know." He put the milk back in the fridge and closed the door. His hand was shaking slightly. "Let's just go." We finished packing quickly, neither of us talking. Marcus went outside to finish disconnecting the RV while I did a final check of the interior. I was about to leave when I noticed something on the floor near the bed. It was a tooth. A human tooth, with the root still attached. I picked it up and stared at it. It was a molar, yellowed with age or decay. There was still dried blood on the root. "Marcus," I called, but my voice came out as a whisper. I went to the door and called again, louder this time. "Marcus!" No answer. I climbed out of the RV and looked around. Marcus's tools were on the ground near the hookups, but he wasn't there. The campground was completely silent. No traffic sounds from the interstate. No birds. Nothing. "Marcus!" The forest swallowed my voice. I walked around the RV, calling his name, feeling panic rising in my chest. He couldn't have just disappeared. He'd been right here 30 seconds ago. I did a complete circuit of the RV and the campsite. No Marcus. I went to the trail we'd hiked yesterday and called down it, but there was no answer. I went back to the RV and tried to think. He had to be nearby. People didn't just vanish. There was a logical explanation. I sat down at the picnic table to wait. He'd probably just gone to the bathhouse or walked to another campsite for some reason. He'd be back any minute. I waited. I don't know how long I waited. My watch had stopped working entirely. The hands were frozen at 3:22, the same time I'd checked it in the night. The RV clocks were all showing different times now, spinning forward and backward in no pattern I could understand. Eventually, I heard footsteps coming through the trees. "Marcus." I stood up. He emerged from the forest, walking slowly. He was smiling. "Where did you go?" I asked. "Just for a walk." His voice sounded normal, but something about the way he was standing was wrong. Too straight, maybe, or too still. "You scared me." "Sorry." He was still smiling. "Are we ready to go?" "Yeah." "Where did you walk to?" "Just around." He moved past me toward the RV. "Let's head out." I followed him, but something was making the hair on the back of my neck stand up. The way he was moving was off. Too smooth, too deliberate, like someone who had learned to walk by watching videos but had never actually done it before. "Marcus, are you okay?" "I'm fine." He climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. "Get in." I got in the passenger seat and closed the door. Marcus put the RV in gear and we started moving, backing out of the campsite and onto the loop road. "Which way is the exit?" he asked. I looked at the map. "Left, I think." He turned right. "Marcus," I said, "left." "This is left." "No, you turned right." "Did I?" He was still smiling. He hadn't stopped smiling since he came back from the forest. We drove through the campground, passing empty campsites and dark bathhouses. The forest pressed close on both sides. We should have reached the exit by now. The campground wasn't that big. But we just kept driving through an endless loop of identical campsites. Marcus, stop. Why? Because we're going in circles. No, we're not. Stop the RV. He pulled over and turned off the engine. We sat there in silence. He was still smiling. Where did you go? I asked again. I told you. For a walk. Into the forest? Yes. Why? I wanted to see. See what? He turned to look at me, and for the first time I got a good look at his eyes. They were the wrong color. Marcus had green eyes. These were brown. Dark brown, almost black. I wanted to see what I looked like, he said. I reached for the door handle, but it wouldn't open. I pulled harder, and it stayed locked, even though the lock button was up. Don't be scared, Not Marcus said. We're almost there. Where? Home. He started the engine again and we began moving. I tried my door again, then lunged across the cab and tried his. Both were locked tight. The windows wouldn't roll down. We were sealed in. I climbed into the back of the RV and tried those doors and windows. All locked. I grabbed a coffee mug from the kitchenette and swung it at a window as hard as I could. The mug shattered, but the window didn't even crack. That won't work. Not Marcus called from the driver's seat. We're not really here anymore. What does that mean? You felt it happening every time you slept. We were pulling you deeper. I looked out the windows. The forest was darker now, and the trees were wrong. Too tall, too straight, with no branches until the very top. And the sky above them wasn't gray or blue. It was a color I didn't have a name for. Something between purple and black. What did you do to Marcus? I asked. Nothing. He's still here. Sort of. Not. Marcus touched his own face like he was exploring it. It's interesting being inside something. You're all so wet and warm. I felt vomit rising in my throat. Let him go. Can't. We're in his now. We're driving him. Not Marcus giggled, and it was the worst sound I'd ever heard. We've been driving him since the forest. We just had to wait until you were deep enough. Deep enough in what? The lost time. That's where we live. In the hours you don't remember, the sleep you can't account for. We've been pulling you down for days now, maybe weeks. It's hard to tell time when you're making it. The RV was still moving through the impossible forest. I looked out the back window and saw more shapes now, dozens of them walking parallel to us through the trees. They were all human-shaped but wrong in the same way Not Marcus was wrong. Too smooth, too purposeful. What are you? I whispered. We don't have a name you'd understand, but we've been here a long time, since before the trees, before the land. We live in the gaps, the missing hours, the time that passes when you're not paying attention. Why? Because we have to live somewhere. Not Marcus was still driving, still smiling. And your world has so many gaps now. You're all so busy, so distracted. You lose time constantly and don't even notice. It makes it easy for us to slip in. I tried the doors again, knowing it was useless. Where are we going? Home. We told you. You'll like it there. Everyone does eventually. Time doesn't work the same way. You can sleep forever if you want. Most do. I thought about Emma, about how she'd walked into the retention pond in her sleep. Had she been pulled into gaps too? Had something been driving her body while her mind was somewhere else? I want to go back, I said. You can't. You're too deep now. You've been sleeping for 17 days. That's not possible. We just got here. You got here on September 12th. It's September 29th now. You've been losing time every time you close your eyes. Hours and hours, just slipping away. We've been pulling you down bit by bit. I looked at my hands. Were they thinner? I couldn't tell. Everything felt unreal. Kate? A new voice. Marcus's voice, but small and far away. Kate, are you there? Marcus. I can't see anything. It's so dark. Where are we? I don't know. Not. Marcus made a disapproving sound. Stop that. You'll just make it harder. Marcus, can you hear me? Kate, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I went for a walk and then I was just gone. Everything got dark and I couldn't move and— Shh, not Marcus said in Marcus's voice. Sleep now. No, I screamed. Marcus, stay with me. But his voice was already fading. So tired, Kate. Need to sleep. Marcus. Silence. Not Marcus sighed. He'll be more comfortable that way. Most of them are. They sleep and dream and don't even realize they're gone. I slumped against the wall of the RV and tried to think. There had to be a way out. There was always a way out. I just had to find the gap, the weakness, the tooth. I still had it in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at it. It was real and solid in a way nothing else in the RV felt anymore. What is this? I held it up. Not. Marcus glanced back at it. For the first time, his smile faltered. Where did you get that? I found it. What is it? Nothing, just a tooth. It's not nothing, you're scared of it. We're not scared of— I stood up and moved toward him, holding the tooth out like a weapon. What is it? Not. Marcus jerked back and the RV swerved. Don't. Tell me what it is. It's from before. From someone who got out. They left pieces behind and those pieces are still real, still solid. They can pull things back. I looked at the tooth in my hand. Pull what back? Everything. Time, space, the gaps, it all snaps back if you use it right, but you won't. You don't know how. He was right. I didn't know how, but I had to try. I pressed the tooth against the wall of the RV, right above Marcus's head. The wall rippled like water, and suddenly I could see through it, back to the real campground, the real forest, the real September afternoon. No. Not. Marcus grabbed for me, but I pushed the tooth harder against the wall. The ripples spread, and the RV began to shake. Through the widening gap, I could see the real world, the actual campsite, the actual trees, the actual sky. We were still there, still parked where we'd been all along. We'd never left. Kate, stop. Not. Marcus was screaming now, and his voice was changing, becoming something that wasn't a voice at all. You'll break everything. I pushed harder. The RV shattered. That's the only way I can describe it. One moment we were in the vehicle, sealed in and moving through an impossible forest. And the next moment everything broke apart like glass and I was falling. And then I was on my back in the dirt, staring up at a normal Florida sky. I sat up slowly. The RV was next to me, exactly where we'd parked it. The hookups were still connected. Marcus's tools were still on the ground, and Marcus was lying a few feet away, unconscious. I crawled to him and checked his pulse. It was there, steady and strong. His eyes were closed and he was breathing normally. He looked like he was sleeping. Marcus? I shook him gently. Marcus, wake up. His eyes fluttered open. They were green again. Kate? I'm here. What happened? Did I fall? Something like that. He sat up, rubbing his head. I had the weirdest dream. We were driving, but we weren't really going anywhere. And you were screaming about something. It's okay, it was just a dream. But I still had the tooth in my hand. And when I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, I could see something in his eyes. A darkness that hadn't been there before. A depth that suggested something was still there, hiding behind his pupils, waiting. He smiled at me. Should we finish packing up? Yeah, I said. Let's go home. We packed up the RV in silence. The food was still spoiled and we threw most of it away. My watch was still frozen at 3:22. And when I checked Marcus's watch, it showed that 19 days had passed since we'd arrived. We drove out of the campground and got back on I-75 heading north. Marcus seemed normal, making jokes, complaining about the RV's handling, suggesting we stop for lunch at the Waffle House in Starkey. But I kept watching him out of the corner of my eye. Every so often he'd forget to blink, or he'd smile a fraction of a second before something funny happened, like he knew the punchline before I delivered it, or I'd catch him staring at his own hands like he was figuring out how they worked. We got back to Gainesville that evening. Marcus parked the RV in the storage lot and we drove home in my car. We ordered pizza and watched TV and went to bed like everything was normal. But in the middle of the night, I woke up and found him standing at the bedroom window, staring out at the dark street. He was completely still, not moving or breathing, just standing there like a statue. "Marcus?" I whispered. He turned to me and smiled. "Just looking outside." "At what?" "Nothing. Go back to sleep." I didn't sleep. I lay there until dawn with the tooth clenched in my fist, watching him watch the window. That was 6 weeks ago. Marcus seems mostly normal now. He goes to work, he laughs at the right times, he remembers to eat and shower and do all the things humans do. But sometimes I catch him doing something that isn't quite right, holding a fork backward, or tilting his head at an angle that no human neck should manage, or forgetting to breathe for minutes at a time. And every night, he stands at the window and stares out at the darkness. I asked him once what he's looking for. "Nothing," he said, smiling. "Just looking." But I know what he's looking for, or what's looking through him. The things in the gaps, the things that live in lost time, they're still there, still waiting, and they're getting better at pretending to be human. I keep the tooth in my pocket always. It's the only real thing I have left, the only thing that proves I'm not crazy. Sometimes I press it against mirrors and see the ripples, see through to something else. Other worlds, other gaps, places where time doesn't work right and things that aren't human walk around wearing human faces. Marcus asked me yesterday if I wanted to go camping again. "Maybe next summer," he said. "We could try Ocala again, really do it right this time." I told him no. But last night I woke up and found myself standing at the front door with my hand on the doorknob, still half asleep. I don't remember getting out of bed, I don't remember walking to the door, and Marcus was standing behind me smiling in the dark. "Where were you going, Kate?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "I was sleeping." "Were you?" His smile got wider. "Or are you still?" "I'm writing this down because I need to remember. I need proof that I'm still me, that I'm still here, that I'm not sleeping my life away in some gap while something else drives my body around. But the truth is, I don't know anymore. I keep losing time. An hour here, 2 hours there. I fall asleep for what feels like minutes and wake up hours later. And sometimes, just sometimes, I catch myself doing things I don't remember deciding to do. Standing in strange places, holding objects I don't recognize, smiling at nothing. Yesterday I found another tooth under my pillow. Not Marcus's tooth. Mine. So I'm writing this down while I still can, while I still remember who Kate Brennan is supposed to be. Because I think I'm going back. I think they're pulling me down again, bit by bit, hour by hour, into the gaps where they live. And the worst part is that some days, I'm not sure I want to fight it anymore. It's so tiring being awake all the time, being vigilant, wondering if every hour I lose is another hour they're taking. Wondering if Marcus is really Marcus or something wearing him like a suit. Sometimes I think about Emma, about how peaceful she looked floating in that retention pond, about how she never woke up, never knew what was happening. Maybe that's better. Maybe that's easier. Marcus is calling me from the bedroom. He says it's time to sleep. He says I need to rest. And he's right. I am so tired. I'll just close my eyes for a minute, just